Chapter 354. Seeing this scene, Jianchen couldn't help but doubt. Was this really a severely injured Class 6 magical beast that only had the strength of a Class 5 magical beast? No matter how he looked at it, it was different from the rumors. Right now, there were already several hundred people standing in front of him with nervous expressions. Every single one of them looked at the tiger with a serious expression. Moreover, among these several hundred people, there were over 20 Earth Saint Masters. If more people gathered together, even if it really was a Class 6 magical beast, they would still be able to contend against it. However, the situation in front of him was completely different. The white tiger was completely white, without a single trace of blood on it. Not far from it, there were over 100 corpses, and there were even a few Earth Saint Masters among them. To kill these people without a single trace of blood on its body, this was not something a heavily injured Class 6 magical beast could do. Looks like the reality is different from the rumors. Maybe this white tiger is a powerful Class 6 magical beast that hasn't suffered any injuries at all. Jianchen quickly deduced the situation in front of him. A completely white tiger that was only half a meter long crawled out of the cave. The tiger was very cute, with a body covered in white fur. It had clearly been born not long ago, and its eyes had yet to open. Even crawling out of the cave was very strenuous. Its 4 short limbs were not enough to support its body to stand up from the ground. The tiger's body was very strange. It actually had a pair of short wings on its back. This was not something a normal tiger-type magical beast could have, making it stand out from the masses. Look, that's a cub of a Class 6 magical beast. Heavens, it actually has wings. Doesn't this mean that it can fly when it grows up? A cub of a Class 6 magical beast has appeared. It's actually a different species. This cub is clearly a cub that hasn't been born for long. If you start cultivating feelings from a young age, then when it grows up in the future, it will definitely be a very loyal and powerful helper. A cub of a Class 6 magical beast that has just been born. This is priceless. Seeing the tiger crawl out of the cave, the crowd immediately became excited. Their gazes became incomparably fiery, and their gazes were filled with greed. There were even some people who began to rub their hands together, as if they couldn't help but go up and grab the tiger. The commotion in the crowd seemed to have made the white tiger feel a little uneasy. It slowly opened its tightly closed eyes and looked at the crowd with a threatening expression. It growled in a low voice and then turned its head. It looked at the little tiger that was struggling to crawl to its side with a complicated expression. Its eyes were filled with doting, sadness, pain, sadness, and other very human emotions, but no one could see them. Sitting on the tree, Jianchen's eyes flashed. The moment the white tiger opened its eyes, he clearly saw that the white tiger's eyes were dim and lifeless. Although it also had a trace of ominous glint, it was mixed with weakness that couldn't be concealed. So much so that Jianchen even caught a trace of despair and unwillingness from the white tiger's eyes. The tiger cub, which was only half a meter long, crawled and rolled to the side of the white tiger's head with great difficulty. It kept rubbing its little head against the tigress's body, and it kept making woo-woo sounds from its mouth. The white tiger's eyes were filled with a motherly radiance, and its gaze towards the tiger cub was filled with tenderness. It was as if a loving mother was looking at her child with a doting gaze, without the slightest trace of fierceness. However, the white tiger's gentle gaze was filled with pain, and a trace of mist gradually condensed in its eyes. Because the white tiger's back was facing the crowd, it was impossible for the crowd to see the expression of the white tiger. Otherwise, everyone would have turned pale with fright, because the white tiger's expression was too human, and its emotions were too rich. It simply didn't seem like a magical beast. At this time, a group of about 100 people quickly walked over from the distance. Looking at the people in front of them blocking the path, one of them immediately shouted in an arrogant tone, "Out of the way, out of the way! All of you out of the way! The people of the Demon Cloud family are here. All of you out of the way!" When they heard the words Demon Cloud family, the the crowd's expression slightly changed. Then the crowd immediately surged and made a path for the people of the Demon Cloud family. The group of people of the Demon Cloud family were all wearing black clothes. They arrogantly walked in and soon arrived at the front. Elder Bai, look, that's the cub of a Class 6 magical beast. Heavens, it actually has a pair of wings. A middle-aged man among the group of people of the Demon Cloud family cried out in surprise. Hearing that, a slightly older middle-aged man standing beside him also revealed a sliver of surprise. However, when he saw the corpses all over the ground and the white tigers in scathed appearance, his face immediately became rather stern. He said in a low voice, "Be careful, this Class 6 magical beast isn't injured at all. Even if its battle prowess has been damaged from giving birth, it's still not something that we can deal with. Elder Bai, that's the cub of a Class 6 magical beast. Let's take advantage of the fact that no one is competing with us to snatch it away. Otherwise, once the people from the large clans arrive, we won't have a share even if we can snatch the cub. Yeah, Elder Bai, let's hurry up and give the order. Right now, no one dares to go against us. It's the best time to take action. Once those people come, it'll be extremely difficult for us to obtain the cub. Elder Bai, we have over a dozen Earth Saint Masters and over 70 Great Saint Masters this time. As long as we stall the Class 6 magical beast, the cub will be ours to take." Some of the people of the Demon Cloud family who had some status whispered into Elder Bai's ear. Hearing those words, Elder Bai, who only seemed to be in his 50s, was slightly tempted. After a moment of thought, he finally made up his mind and said, "How about this? Old Kai, you lead over a dozen Earth Saint Masters to stall the Class 6 magical beast. I'll go get the cub. Once we get the cub, everyone immediately scatter and flee." "Yes, Elder Bai." The dozen Earth Saint Masters all responded. They were all extremely excited. If they could successfully bring the cub back to the Black Cloud family, it would definitely be a great contribution. Afterwards, they discussed the finer details of the plan. The Earth Saint Masters of the Heiyun clan all took out their saint weapons and formed an offensive and defensive formation as they charged at the Class 6 magical beast. Elder Bai, on the other hand, nervously stood where he was. Once the Earth Saint Masters of the Heiyun clan had drawn the magical beast's attention away, he would use his fastest speed to protect the young magical beast and flee. When the people of the Black Cloud family began to move, the people of the other smaller clans also began to restlessly become restless. They seemed to want to participate in the fight for the cub. Sensing the reactions of the people around him, Elder Bai coldly snorted and said, "Everyone, if anyone dares to ruin the business of my Black Cloud family, then my Black Cloud family will definitely not let him go. A Class 6 magical beast is not something that just anyone can obtain. Everyone should carefully consider whether it is worth offending my Black Cloud family for a cub that you can obtain." Hearing Elder Bai's threat, many people's expressions changed. They then secretly sighed. They had already given up on the idea of competing with the Black Cloud family for the cub. Not to mention the consequences of offending the Black Cloud family. Just based on the situation before them, they could not compete with the Black Cloud family. After all, the Black Cloud family had sent over a dozen Earth Saint Masters and dozens of Great Saint Masters at once. The strength of their formation was enough to make everyone fear them. The Black Cloud family, what kind of family is that? They seemed to have a pretty big background. Jianchen muttered as he sat on a large tree in the back. The Black Cloud family is one of the strongest families in our Skull Kingdom. They are so powerful that they are ranked 3rd in the entire kingdom. It is said that the family has over 50 Earth Saint Masters and 3 Peak Heaven Saint Masters. The old patriarch of the Lan Ming family leapt onto a large tree beside Jianchen and explained to him, "They actually have 3 Heaven Saint Masters. Haha, this Black Cloud family's strength really can't be underestimated." Jianchen chuckled. He did not take the patriarch seriously at all. After experiencing what had happened in Mercenary City, Jinchen's horizons had increased by a lot. Mercenary City had a saint ruler on the level of the Holy Emperor, and there were at least a dozen saint rulers. In Genshin's eyes, the Black Cloud family with 3 Heaven Saint Masters could only be considered pretty good. Genshin, who was concentrating on the scene before him, did not realize that his casual expression had been completely seen by the old patriarch of the Lan Ming family. This made the old patriarch wonder about Genshin's identity once again. He actually looked down on the Black Cloud family with 3 Heaven Saint Masters. Just what level of strength did he have? Roar! A loud tiger's roar rang out. The white tiger opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of powerful energy, which immediately turned into a dozen sharp swords. They shot toward the dozen Earth Saint Masters, charging over with lightning speed. The dozen or so Earth Saint Masters of the Heian clan did not even have the time to dodge before their chests were pierced by the sharp swords formed from the energy. The dozen or so Earth Saint Masters did not even have the time to scream before they silently fell to the ground, no longer moving. This change stunned Elder Bai, who had already mustered up all his energy and was ready to charge forward and steal the cub at any time. He stared at the dozen Earth Saint Masters who had collapsed in disbelief. His face was filled with shock as he immediately yelled, "Old Kai, Bentley, Chajak, how are you?" Even after a long while, Elder Bai still did not receive any response. The dozen or so Earth Saint Masters of the Heian clan did not even move an inch. Elder Bai's face instantly turned pale. He stared at the white tiger that was less than 3 meters long in front of him in horror. His face was full of disbelief. No, this is impossible, this is impossible." Elder Bai murmured with a pale face. He was unable to accept this result. Even if the white tiger was a Class 6 magical beast in perfect condition, it was impossible for it to kill over a dozen Earth Saint Masters so easily. Those were Earth Saint Masters. Chapter 355. The white tiger had killed over a dozen Earth Saint Masters with a single roar. Not only had the Black Cloud clan's Elder Bai and Genshin been shocked by such a shocking achievement, even the jaws of the several hundred onlookers had dropped to the ground. All of them looked at the white tiger in a different light. Heavens, isn't this tiger too powerful? It killed over a dozen Earth Saint Masters in a single stroke. Is this the strength of a Class 6 magical beast? There is a huge gap between Class 6 and Class 5. It's not something that can be made up with numbers. Unless a Heaven Saint Master personally comes, no one here can deal with this magical beast. Impossible, there is indeed a huge gap between Class 6 and Class 5 magical beasts, but it can't be this big. This magical beast is at least at the peak of Class 6. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to kill over a dozen Earth Saint Masters so easily. Yes, this magical beast is at the peak of the 6th class at the very least. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for it to kill over a dozen Earth Saint Masters so easily. If all of them worked together, they would be able to contend against a regular Class 6 magical beast. The onlookers immediately began to discuss with one another. All of them were emotional. Clearly, they had been shocked by the white tiger's ability to kill over a dozen Earth Saint Masters. This was because many of them were still at the Great Saint Master realm. Earth Saint Masters were unreachable experts in their eyes. However, at this moment, the Earth Saint Masters who were considered experts in their eyes were actually so weak in front of the white tiger. This gave them a huge shock. I'm actually lucky enough to see a magical beast at the peak of Class 6. Heavens, this is equivalent to a peak Heaven Saint Master. A middle-aged man dressed as a mercenary excitedly said. The white tiger's display of strength scared off many people. Although it had killed over 100 people before, and there was no lack of Earth Saint Masters among them, the shock this time was extremely great. It made those Great Saint Masters immediately give up on their greedy thoughts. Even some Earth Saint Masters began to think about retreating. The strength that the white tiger had displayed had terrified them. Probably only a Heaven Saint Master could match up to the white tiger. Elder Bai of the Black Cloud clan didn't know what to do for a moment, but a sixth-rank magical beast cub was right in front of him. This made him very unwilling to retreat. Men immediately returned to the clan and report everything that happened here. Elder Bai immediately said to one of the men, "Yes." Immediately, a few people left the place. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. The matter of a Class 6 magical beast appearing in the Thousand Poisons mountain range had become known by more and more people. As the news of the Class 6 magical beast spread, more and more people gathered in the mountain range. Now, other than the Heian clan, there were a few other clans that were not much weaker than the Heian clan. Almost every single one of them had brought a dozen or more Earth Saint Masters with them. As a result, over 100 Earth Saint Masters had gathered in the mountain range. It was said that a Heaven Saint Master from the Heian clan had personally rushed over and would arrive soon. From this, it could be seen how great the temptation of a Class 6 magical beast cub was. "Move aside, move aside! Everyone move aside, the people from the Dragon Tiger sect are here. Everyone, please move aside, we are from the Divine Firmament sect. The people from the Baiwa clan are here. Everyone move aside, we are from the War God Mercenary group. Everyone move aside." In the Myriad Poisons Mountains, there were many large clans that had arrived. They had all heard about the Class 6 magical beast cub and had come to fight for it. Every single one of them was extremely powerful and had at least several Earth Saint Masters accompanying them. Now that the situation had developed to this point, it was no longer something the Lanming clan could interfere with. The old patriarch of the Lanming clan had already given up on the idea of snatching the food from the tiger's mouth. He had led some of the clan's experts and retreated far away. He had no intention of interfering in this matter at all. Today, the leaders of the various clans had gathered together to discuss the matter of the white tiger. Although there were so many Earth Saint Masters gathered here, and it was enough to kill a Class 6 magical beast in perfect condition, none of them were willing to pay such a high price. In their eyes, killing a Class 6 magical beast was not difficult. The most important thing was who the Class 6 magical beast would belong to. How about this? I believe you all know how powerful this Class 6 magical beast is. It can easily kill more than 10 Earth Saint Masters. Why don't we gather all the Earth Saint Masters and kill the Class 6 magical beast first, and then fight for the cub based on our own strength? A middle-aged man from the Baiwa clan suggested. No. What if someone takes the opportunity to snatch the cub while we are dealing with the Class 6 magical beast? A vice-captain of the War God Mercenary group said, "Whoever dares to do that will become an enemy of all of our clans. We will surround and attack them," an expert from the Dragon Tiger sect said. "All right, let's do it this way. Let's go arrange the manpower." Very soon, the various clans had come to an agreement. The only one who was unhappy was the Heian clan. This was because their ancestor, a Heaven Saint Master, was rushing over. If they delayed until their ancestor arrived, who would dare to compete with them for the cub? Unfortunately, the other clans also understood this, so they did not hesitate and immediately took action. Jianqin continued to sit on the tree and watch the situation unfold. The people from the Lanming clan were afraid of causing trouble for no reason, so they retreated far away. This was because the Lanming clan could not afford to offend any of the clans gathered here. The various clans had already sent out 50 Earth Saint Masters to surround and kill the white tiger. At this moment, they were making the final preparations and were only waiting for the order to be given. As for the white tiger, it was still lazily lying at the entrance of the cave with its eyes closed. It only opened a little to observe the situation around it. However, Jianqin, who had been watching over the white tiger, was very clear in his heart that the white tiger in front of him was very weak. It looked like it was lazily lying there without any fear, but Jianqin suspected that this white tiger was not even able to stand up. This was because in these 2 days the white tiger had not moved at all, as if it had no strength at all. If the white tiger really had a strong battle strength, it would have already killed all those who had ulterior motives for its son. However, it did not do so. With the temperament of magical beasts, this was basically impossible. This was one of the biggest points of suspicion. "Human, help my child!" At this moment, a weak voice entered Genshin's ears. The sudden voice made Genshin jump in fright. His whole body quivered, and he immediately jumped down from the tree. His eyes vigilantly looked around, but he did not find anyone suspicious. Genshin's heart began to beat uncontrollably. Just now he had not sensed anyone approaching, but there was actually someone who spoke in his ear. This made him feel extremely shocked. "Human, I beg you to help my child." At this moment, the same voice entered Genshin's ears again. The voice seemed to have a trace of pleading in it. It was incomparably weak, and even the voice seemed to be lacking in strength. Genshin's body slightly trembled, but this time he did not make a fuss. He carefully sensed the direction of the voice and then looked in front of him in disbelief, where the white tiger was. "Who are you?" Genshin's mouth slightly opened and whispered. He believed that the owner of the voice could hear him. "My name is Rum Guinness. I am the magical beast in front of you." A weak voice sounded in Genshin's ears. From the voice, it was not difficult to hear that it was a female, but the tone was very weak. Hearing this, Genshin turned pale with fright. He looked at the white tiger in disbelief. He never thought that the person who spoke to him was not a human, but a magical beast. Moreover, the voice was no different from a human's. How could this not make Genshin feel surprised? Then, a thought quickly flashed in Genshin's mind. His face was filled with horror as he exclaimed in a low voice, Could it be that you are not a rank 6 magical beast, but a rank 7 magical beast?" In the library of Kargas, Genshin had read many books about magical beasts. He knew that rank 7 magical beasts could transform into human form and speak human language. There was not the slightest difference between them and a normal human. "According to how you humans categorize us magical beasts, I am indeed a rank 7 magical beast." The weak voice sounded in Genshin's ears again. It was like someone was whispering into Genshin's ears, and only he could hear it. "A class 7 magical beast. Isn't that equivalent to a saint ruler?" Genshin's face was filled with shock. His heart was in turmoil. He found it hard to believe that the white tiger that had been lying at the entrance of the cave for 2 whole days without moving was actually a class 7 magical beast with the strength of a saint ruler. If the people of the various large organizations found out that the white tiger was a class 7 magical beast, they would probably all flee faster than rabbits. How would they have the courage to try and steal their young? "Human, I'm begging you. Please help my child." The white tiger's voice once again sounded in Genshin's ears. This time it was filled with pleading. Genshin calmed down very quickly. The white tiger's words made him bitterly smile. He softly muttered to himself, "How can a puny Earth Saint Master like me help you with something that even a class 7 magical beast like you can't do? There are so many people here, so you can ask them for help. Human, out of so many people, you're the only one I can entrust my life to. The others aren't reliable. Can you help my child?" The white tiger's weak voice rang out in Genshin's head. "You don't even know what kind of person I am. So why do you say that I'm the most worthy of your trust?" Genshin's face was filled with confusion. He felt that the white tiger was being a little too careless. Chapter 356. Hearing this, Genshin immediately felt troubled. He had already realized that this might not be a good task. Genshin thought for a moment and said, "Then can you tell me what kind of trouble you've encountered? How can I help you?" At this moment, a wave of battle cries rang out from the front. The people from the various large organizations had already finished their preparations. A total of 50 Earth Saint Masters charged toward the white tiger. Roar! The eyes of the white tiger on the ground shone with an ominous light. It raised its head to the sky and let out a deafening roar. It spread through the entire 1,000 Poisons mountain range. Immediately, Countless poisonous creatures in the Thousand Poisons mountain range trembled on the ground. They were all terrified, as if they had received a great shock. White Tiger, who had been lying on the ground for 2 days without moving, suddenly stood up. Its eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light as it stared at the group of people rushing over. Then, with a leap, it actually rushed into the crowd. The white tiger's body was not very large, only 3 meters long, but its strength was terrifying. It charged into the group of 50 Earth Saint Masters like a wolf in a flock of sheep. Every swipe was a massacre. No one could dodge the white tiger's attack. No one could survive a swipe from the white tiger. No one could even land a hit on the white tiger. In less than 10 breaths of time, the 50 Earth Saint Masters from the various large organizations had all been killed by the white tiger. Not a single one of them was spared. Every single one of them had been killed in a single strike. No matter where the white tiger had struck, it was impossible for them to survive. After killing the 50 Earth Saint Masters, the white tiger glared at the people from the various large organizations with an ominous glint in its eyes. It roared loudly, scaring everyone into retreating. The white tiger did not kill them all. It slowly turned around and continued to walk toward the entrance of the cave. The light of weakness in its eyes became more and more obvious. The white tiger returned to the entrance of the cave and slowly lay down. Placing its head on the ground, it slowly closed its eyes. The leaders of the various large organizations all looked at the white tiger with pale faces. Their lips were chattering for a long time, but no words came out. They were all quite frightened by the white tiger's strength. This magical beast is too powerful. Its strength has indeed reached the peak of the 6th class. After a long while, the leader of one of the forces finally spoke with a trembling voice. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at the white tiger. "He's too strong. What should we do? We're no match for him. Even if all of us attack him together, we won't be able to kill him," another person said. "No, this magical beast is too abnormal. Since it is so strong, why didn't it kill all of us? With the protective nature of magical beasts towards their children, there's no reason for it to let us go. That's right, this is too abnormal. Look at that magical beast. Why does it look so listless? It's always lying there with its eyes closed, not moving at all. Rumor has it that it is heavily injured. Everyone thinks that it is very weak and does not have the ability to deal with all of us." After everyone recovered from their shock, they began to discuss with each other, voicing their thoughts one after another. Magical beasts were very protective of their own childishness, no less than how humans doted on their own children. And anyone who had ideas about their children would have to suffer the crazy revenge of the magical beasts. But this white tiger's approach was a bit strange. At this time, the white tiger's voice rang in Genshin's ears again. "Human, I can't hold on for much longer. I beg you to agree to a request of mine. Take my child and leave this place. You are the only one who is worthy of my trust. I don't want my child to fall into the hands of those people." The white tiger's voice was much weaker than before. It was filled with pleading. Hearing this, Genshin frowned and thought for a while. In the end, he nodded. "All right, I promise to help you take care of your child. Human, I am truly grateful to you. My intuition tells me that giving my child to you is a very wise choice. I can feel that if my child encounters any danger, you will definitely do your best to help him, right?" The white tiger's voice was filled with joy. "That's right." Genshin nodded without hesitation. "Human, Rum Guinness is very grateful to you. Although this will cause you some trouble, I have no other choice. Human, go into the cave. There are some things I have to tell you," the tiger said. Genshin did not hesitate. He leaped over the crowd and shot into the cave behind the white tiger like lightning. "Damn it, who is this? Does he want to die? This person doesn't want to live anymore." Genshin's actions were not stopped by the people of the major forces. They all looked at Genshin as if they were looking at an idiot. However, to everyone's disbelief, when Jianchen entered the cave smoothly and disappeared from everyone's sight, the white tiger lying at the entrance of the cave did not seem to see Jianchen at all. It did not even open its eyes. Is the white tiger asleep? The crowd began to become restless. Jianchen's smooth entry into the cave made many people jealous. Many people outside wanted to copy Jianchen and quickly rush into the cave. At this moment, two figures shot out from the crowd. They were actually faster than Jianchen and shot into the cave behind the white tiger. This was because the little tiger was in the dark cave. Roar! The white tiger that was lying motionless on the ground immediately let out a low roar. It waved its front paws, causing a layer of faint ripples to appear in the surrounding air. Then, the bodies of the two people in the air immediately split in half and fell to the ground powerlessly, spraying blood all over the sky. Two Earth Saint Masters were killed so easily. This scene immediately dispelled the thoughts of others who wanted to copy Jianchen and rush into the cave at high speed. After killing the two people, the white tiger glanced at everyone with an ominous glint in its eyes. After that, it slowly walked into the pitch-black cave and disappeared from everyone's sight, leaving behind a group of people staring at each other. They couldn't understand why the white tiger didn't kill the person who had entered the cave before. In the cave, a fist-sized luminous pearl hung high on the ceiling, illuminating the entire cave. It wasn't as dark as it seemed from the outside. In the corner of the cave, a half-meter-long tiger cub was curled up and sleeping with its eyes closed. It looked very cute, but the pair of short wings on its back showed that it wasn't ordinary. The white tiger slowly walked in from outside. It looked at the little tiger in the corner with a doting gaze. It then stood up, and under Jianchen's dumbfounded gaze, it slowly turned into a middle-aged woman. The middle-aged woman was very valiant. She was over 2 meters tall, a head taller than Jianchen. She had the waist of a bear and the back of a tiger. Her strong physique was almost comparable to Qin Zhao's. Jianchen stared blankly at the middle-aged woman. Although he knew that a few Class 7 magical beasts could take human form, this was the first time he had seen it with his own eyes. He felt that it was very mystical. The scene in front of him was simply too unbelievable. If the scene in front of him was placed in the world of Jianchen's previous life, then this middle-aged woman would be a true demoness, a demoness who had cultivated successfully, and a tiger demoness at that. The world Jianchen currently lived in was on a completely different level from his previous life. The lifespan of an ordinary person in this world was around 200 years, while the lifespan of an Earth Saint Master was around 500 years. The lifespan of a Heaven Saint Master was around 1,000 years. In his original world, even the peak experts could only live for a little over 100 years. Only people like Duge Qiubai could barely live for 200 years. The white tiger, who had turned into a middle-aged woman, hugged a half-meter-long cub intimately in her arms and looked at it dotingly. Then she turned her gaze towards Jianchen and said, "Human, thank you for helping me take care of my child. Rum Guinness is unable to repay your kindness. Can you tell me about the trouble you've encountered? You seem to be very weak. Have you reached the end of your lifespan?" Jianchen asked rather helplessly. He really struggled to compare this middle-aged woman with the white tiger from before. The middle-aged woman sighed sorrowfully. "Human, I shouldn't have hidden it from you. I'll tell you everything. I just hope that you won't abandon my child after hearing this story." "I won't. Don't worry. I, Jianchen, will never go back on my word." "I'm not someone who goes back on my word," Jianchen swore. The middle-aged woman looked at Jianchen in interest, but she could not hide the weakness in her eyes no matter what. "I believe you. My instincts tell me that you're not lying." The middle-aged woman fell silent as if she had sunk into a painful memory. She murmured, "In the depths of the Cross Mountains, there's a magical beast clan that rules over all the high-class magical beasts there. The clan is called the Gilligan clan. There are 2 kings in the Gilligan clan. They respectively control the land magical beasts and the flying magical beasts of the Cross Mountains. Us tigers and rocks are members of the royal family of the Gilligan clan, because the king of the land magical beasts is a golden-furred tiger king, while the king of the flying magical beasts is a huge rock. I am a powerful elder of the Gilligan clan, said the Gilligan. Chapter 357. At the mention of the winged tiger, Rum Guinness became emotional and said, "The winged tiger is the king of us tigers. It has a supreme status among us magical beasts. It is a true beast god. That's because a winged tiger god appeared in the ancient times. It was because of its appearance that all of us magical beasts were united. We led our magical beast army across the ocean and chased the 100 races away from a continent that was extremely suitable for us to live in, taking over this continent. When we found out that our child was the great winged tiger god, the two of us were extremely excited. The child's father immediately couldn't help but tell his elder brother about this great news. However, that was where the nightmare began. In the past, we never thought that a day like this would come. We never thought that the child's father's elder brother would be so vicious. His elder brother was afraid that the appearance of the winged tiger god would threaten his position, so he harbored evil intentions and tried to kill our child. In order to protect our child, the two of us left the Gilligan clan. However, the ruler of the Gilligan clan still refused to let us go. He kept the matter of our child being the winged tiger god a secret and personally hunted us down. He was extremely powerful. Even when the child's father and I worked together, we were not his opponent. We were both heavily injured by him. In the end, the child's father risked his life to stop his elder brother so that I could escape with the child. I can no longer sense the child's father's presence now. He has already been killed by his own elder brother. Rum Guinness' expression became very sorrowful at this point. 2 clear streams of tears flowed down her face. I fled with my child with all my might, leaving the Cross Mountain Range. When I arrived here, it seemed like it was the will of the heavens. Perhaps even the heavens didn't want anything to happen to my child. When I arrived here, I actually stayed here for half a year. At the very end of my life, I actually met you, someone worthy of my trust. Could it be that all of this is the will of the heavens? At the end of your life, could it be that your injuries are very serious? Are you unable to recover? Gentian asked. Rum Guinness said with a sorrowful expression, "That's right. When the king of the Gilligan clan heavily injured me, a strand of pure and powerful dark energy entered my body. In the past few days, it has been constantly destroying my body. This dark energy is the origin energy of the king of the Gilligan clan. I've done everything I can, but I can't do anything about it. I can only watch as it constantly destroys my body and devours my life force. If it were not for the fact that we magical beasts have innately powerful bodies, I would have died long ago. I can only last for 3 days at most." Gentian's face changed when he heard that. He quickly interrupted Rum Guinness. "Is there any other way to purge the dark energy in your body?" Rum Guinness shook her head. "It's useless. The dark energy the king of the Gilligan clan left in me is his origin energy. It's extremely powerful, and it has already invaded every part of my body. It's basically destroying all my life force. Even if I purge the dark energy, I definitely won't be able to live for long with my current injuries. Then, what if there's a radiant Saint Master? Can they heal you?" Gentian looked at Rum Guinness nervously. Rum Guinness shook her head gently. "The dark energy is so powerful that it's not something a regular radiant Saint Master can purge. If you want to purge the dark energy in my body, you need a Class 7, Radiant Saint Master at the very least. However, Class 7, Radiant Saint Masters are as rare as phoenix feathers and Chelan horns. It's impossible to find them, and I don't have that much time right now. Even if I can find them, they won't purge the dark energy for me. You don't understand the relationship between my Gilligan clan and you humans. It's impossible for your Class 7, Radiant Saint Masters to help Maine. Why don't you let me try? I might be able to help you. Jianchen looked at Rum Guinness sternly. It's useless, human. Don't waste your efforts. I don't have much time left. It's best if you leave with my child right now. I will use the last of my power to deal with the people outside so that I can leave here safely. Rum Guinness's expression was indifferent. She was ready to leave this world. After saying this, her eyes suddenly became blurred. She murmured in a low voice, "Child's father, you are not alone. I will be with you soon. Let us watch our child grow up in another world." Jianchen felt sad when he saw Rum Guinness' expression. He no longer said anything else and slowly closed his eyes. He focused on controlling the radiant saint force in the surroundings. Although he knew it was impossible for him to purge the dark energy within Rum Guinness, he still wanted to try. A ball of milky white light slowly formed between Jianchen's hands. It rapidly expanded at a visible rate, becoming a dazzling ball of light very soon. The light was bright, but it was extremely gentle. It was not dazzling at all. When the light shone on people, they would feel comfortable. Rum Guinness was surprised. She immediately suppressed her sorrow when she saw this. She stared at Jianchen in surprise and said in shock, "You're actually a radiant Saint Master as well. How is this possible?" Rum Guinness' voice was filled with disbelief. Jianchen knew that the dark energy within Rum Guinness was extremely powerful, so he focused on condensing the radiant saint force. He was unable to divert his attention to speak at all. He could not even make out Rum Guinness' voice clearly. A while later, when the radiant saint force reached the limits of Jianchen's control, he slowly extended his hands. The radiant saint force in his hands slowly flew out and enveloped Rum Guinness. After recovering from her shock, Rum Guinness accepted the unbelievable sight before her very soon. After sensing the strength of the radiant saint force, she shook her head and sighed in the end. "It's no good. Your radiant saint force is too weak. It's impossible for you to purge the origin energy of darkness in my body. It can only suppress it for a while at most." Jianchen's eyes lit up. He immediately asked, "How long can it be suppressed for?" Rum Guinness remained silent for a while as if she was calculating. In the end, she said, "Radiant Saint Force just happens to be the nemesis of dark energy. If I have enough Radiant Saint Force, I should be able to temporarily seal up the dark energy under my guidance. However, I'll need to maintain the seal and suppress the dark energy with everything I have. I won't be able to fight against anyone." Jianchen rejoiced inside when he heard that. He could finally prevent this powerful magical beast from dying. He then said rather excitedly, "If that's the case, let's do this. I'll provide you with enough Radiant Saint Force to seal up the dark energy within you." A gleam of joy flashed through Rum Guinness' eyes when she heard that, but they dimmed soon after. She said, "No, if I do that, I won't be able to use the energy within me to fight against anyone. There are so many people outside. You won't be able to charge out by yourself. Although you've hidden your presence, I can still sense your strength. You won't be able to deal with so many people at once. I can already sense that a human Heaven Saint Master is hurrying over. He'll be here soon, so I need to kill him." Jianchen's face changed when he heard her mention a Heaven Saint Master. Although the white tiger before him could kill a Heaven Saint Master, her wounds would worsen if she did that. This was because her wounds would worsen every time she attacked. If she really did run out of energy, she probably would not even have the strength to seal up the dark energy within her. "Don't worry, I can deal with the people outside. I also have the ability to shake off a Heaven Saint Master. I'll provide you with Radiant Saint Force right now, so immediately seal up the dark energy within you." Jianchen hurriedly said before immediately providing Rum Guinness with Radiant Saint Force. "Human, why are you helping me like this? I've already entrusted my child to you. I don't have any last wishes. Right now, I just want to go to the other world to find my child's father. He'll definitely be lonely there." 2 lines of tears flowed from Rum Guinness' eyes as she spoke with a sobbing voice. "Since you're a mother, You have to be responsible for your child. Do you want your child to be an orphan without parents? Do you know that this will be a great pain to your child? This is something that can never be made up for. So no matter what, I hope that you can live on. Just treat it as doing it for your child. Don't you want to take revenge for your husband? Don't tell me that your husband has been cruelly killed by his own brother, and you can only silently endure the pain without doing anything? Don't tell me that you're going to throw such a difficult task to your child who hasn't even grown up yet? Are you still a mother in the end? Have you ever thought about your child? Jianshin's voice was rather emotional. He basically growled towards the end. Since there was hope, he would not let Rum Guinness die, no matter what. After hearing her story, Jianshin's emotions had been affected as well. He felt some sympathy for this unfortunate mother and child. Another reason was that Jianshin did not wish for an expert who could rival human saint rulers to die like this. Rum Guinness was momentarily speechless when she heard Jianshin's words. She could only sob softly. Jianshin's words had shaken her original thoughts of dying like this. Chapter 358. Rum Guinness nodded painfully. She sobbed, "I'll listen to you. For my child I have to live on. I can't give such a difficult task to my child. I have to avenge my husband. I have to watch my child grow up." Jianshin immediately let out a sigh of relief when he saw that Rum Guinness had regained her motivation to live. He had finally saved a saint ruler. The dark energy has already entered my bones. Radiant Saint Force just happens to be its nemesis. Use your Radiant Saint Force to force the dark energy out. Leave everything else to me. Rum Guinness calmed down very quickly and said to Jianshin. Afterwards, Jianshin worked with Rum Guinness as hard as he could. The two of them spent 2 whole hours. With Jianshin's assistance, Rum Guinness finally completely sealed the dark energy within her body. At the same time, she suppressed it with all her might, preventing the dark energy from breaking through the seal of Radiant Saint Force. This was because the Radiant Saint Force was just too weak compared to the dark energy. However, Rum Guinness had also lost the strength of a Class 7 magical beast. She could not use any of the energy within her body right now. She could only rely on her body to complete all her actions, even fighting. Her strength had been greatly reduced. Afterwards, Jianshin spent another hour healing a small portion of Rum Guinness' wounds. Only then did he stop and prepare to break out of the encirclement with Rum Guinness. "Human, I can't use my strength right now. I can't protect my child anymore. Please take my child away." Rum Guinness' face was covered in tears as she reluctantly handed the baby tiger to Jianshin. Jianshin took the sleeping tiger and solemnly nodded. "Don't worry, I'll definitely take good care of your child. When I reach the 7th step of the Radiant Saint Master Realm, I'll completely remove the dark energy in your body." Rum Guinness looked at Jianshin with gratitude and said, "Human, I know what you said is true. I can feel that you really care about me and my son. I, Rum Guinness, will always remember your kindness. Also, because my child is a winged tiger god, its growth will be especially slow. It needs to consume a large number of heavenly resources to speed up its growth. Once my child grows up, it'll have the ability to search for heavenly resources as well," Jianshin said with a smile. After that, Rum Guinness reminded Jianshin of many things related to this matter, such as that he must remember that his child was a winged tiger, and so on. Jianshin took Rum Guinness's words to heart and said, "Don't worry, I know what to do. Let's leave this place immediately. The longer we stay, the more variables there will be." After saying that, Jianshin didn't waste any more time. With his left hand holding the baby tiger, he used his clothes to cover its body and rushed out of the cave. With a leap, he shot off into the distance. "He's obtained a Class 6 magical beast. Don't let him escape." It was a pity that there were many people with sharp minds. As soon as they saw Jianshin holding something in his arms, they immediately guessed what it was. At that moment, everyone began to move. The remaining 50 Earth Saint Masters all flew up to block Jianshin's path. Jian Chen's eyes became incomparably sharp as they flashed with killing intent. The light wind sword appeared in his hand, covered with a layer of purple and green sword chi. With a few flashes of sword light, Jian Chen's light wind sword pierced out like lightning. In the blink of an eye, the 3 Earth Saint Masters in front of him were killed. However, the surrounding people were all mesmerized by the enticement of a Class 6 magical beast. Each and every one of them stared at the bulging thing in Jian Chen's arms. Although they couldn't see what was inside, it was no longer important. When Jian Chen was in the cave, the white tiger didn't stop him. Then, when he was inside with the white tiger for so long, there was no sound of fighting. Under such circumstances, even an idiot would know that the relationship between Jian Chen and the white tiger wasn't that simple. Now that they saw Jian Chen running out of the cave, as long as they had a brain, they would know that Jian Chen was running away with a Class 6 magical beast. Jian Chen's lightning-fast killing of the 3 Earth Saint Masters didn't scare them away. The remaining Earth Saint Masters had already jumped into the air to block Jian Chen's path. Several saint weapons and tens of powerful sword chi flew towards Jian Chen at the same time. Jian Chen's light wind sword was forced to the ground by the attacks of the Earth Saint Masters. His eyes became even sharper as the purple and green sword chi on his light wind sword became even more intense. His long sword turned into a sky full of sword images as he charged forward. He wanted to carve out a path of blood. Now that Jian Chen was a 4th cycle Earth Saint Master, his strength was much greater than before. With the help of the purple and green sword spirits, he was like a wolf in a flock of sheep. Unexpectedly, no one was able to stop him. The child is on him. We must stop him. Don't let him take the Class 6 magical beast's child away. Great Saint Masters retreat. All Earth Saint Masters surround him. Even if he has 3 heads and 6 arms, he won't be able to leave this place. Within the crowd, the leaders of the various powers continuously gave out orders. Immediately, the Earth Saint Masters began to close in on Jian Chen, while the Great Saint Masters quickly retreated. Very quickly, Jian Chen was surrounded by a large group of Earth Saint Masters. In front of him, there were more than 10 Earth Saint Masters who had formed an offensive and defensive formation to block Jian Chen's path. "Those who block me will die," Jian Chen loudly shouted. His speed did not decrease in the slightest. His left hand held the tiger that Rumguinness had entrusted to him, while his right hand held the light wind sword fearlessly. As he approached the 10 Earth Saint Masters who were blocking his path, the light wind sword that was infused with purple and green sword chi stabbed towards them. The speed of Jian Chen's sword was extremely fast. Among the 10 Earth Saint Masters, only a few managed to block Jian Chen's sword. The rest did not even have time to react before they were pierced through. There were even a few who did not manage to catch a glimpse of the sword. As for those who had blocked Jian Chen's attack, their saint weapons had all been pierced by the purple and green sword chi, causing them to vomit blood as they retreated, greatly reducing their battle prowess. The offensive and defensive formation formed by the 10 Earth Saint Masters had been broken apart by Jian Chen in an instant. At this time, another 10 Earth Saint Masters surrounded Jian Chen from all directions. Their saint weapons surged with energy as they slashed towards Jian Chen, sealing off any path of escape for Jian Chen. Jian Chen coldly snorted as he circulated the heavens, seizing fortune art, increasing his strength by 3 times. He then stabbed out with the light wind sword at an inconceivable speed. Only the sounds of weapons colliding could be heard as the 10 saint weapons that were heading towards Jian Chen were all blocked by the light wind sword. When the purple and green sword chi collided with the saint weapons, each of the saint weapons had a thumb-sized hole in them. When the saint weapons were damaged, the owners of the saint weapons were also affected. They all spat out mouthfuls of blood as they stared at Jian Chen in shock. A few people immediately noticed the purple and green sword chi on Jian Chen's light wind sword. Their faces immediately changed as they cried out, "His saint weapon has a purple and green sword chi. Not good, he's Jianchen. He's the one who obtained first place in the mercenary tournament, Jianchen." Like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples, everyone who was surrounding Jianchen stared at him in shock. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. This place was only 10,000 li away from Mercenary City, so it could be said that it was extremely close. The name of the mercenary king, Jianchen, was like thunder to their ears. The news of the mercenary king, Jianchen, had also spread like wildfire. In the end, almost everyone knew that Jianchen's saint weapon had a faint purple and green sword chi that could easily destroy an Earth Saint Master's saint weapon. Right now, the purple and green sword chi was practically a symbol of Jianchen's status. This was because no one in the Tianyuan continent had a saint weapon that emitted a purple light. In the Tianyuan continent, no one had ever possessed a saint weapon that emitted a purple light. In the Tianyuan continent, there had never been anyone who possessed a saint weapon that emitted a purple light. However, what they found hard to believe was that the person who had stolen the infant of a Class 6 magical beast was actually the mercenary king, Jianchen. This result immediately stunned many people on the spot, not knowing how to deal with it. This was because every mercenary king was not an ordinary person. In the future, they would at least become a Heaven Saint Master. Many large organizations were unwilling to offend them. Soon, Jianchen's name was known by the people in the outer circle. Immediately, an intense debate broke out. Gradually, the news spread further and further. More and more people came to know that the champion of the mercenary tournament, the king of mercenaries, Jianchen, had appeared in the 1,000 Poison Mountain Range. Jianchen's eyes turned cold. He knew that his identity had been exposed. It would probably reach the ears of the Shi and Jetta families in Mercenary City very quickly. Right now, there were many people on the mountain range. There were at least 1,000 people. Killing them to silence them was very unrealistic. Jianchen did not dare to hesitate. He knew that he could not stay here for long. Taking advantage of the stunned crowd, he leapt over them and fled into the distance. Quickly chase after him. Stop him. No matter who he is, we must take the infant of the Class 6 magical beast. Immediately, the leader of a large organization shouted, "Quickly stop him. Don't let him get away. There are so many of us, we must take the infant of the Class 6 magical beast." The cub of a Class 6 magical beast made quite a few people jealous. The people of the various large organizations no longer cared about Jianchen's status. They all gave out orders to hunt him down because the cub of a Class 6 magical beast was just too precious. After a moment of hesitation, the Earth Saint Masters gritted their teeth and chased after him. They knew that Jianchen was very powerful and did not want to become enemies with Jianchen. However, they also did not dare to disobey orders. However, by the time they caught up, Jianchen had already used the illusory flash to escape. His speed was not something they could catch up to. They could only watch as Jianchen fled. Chapter 359. The internet was cut off last night, so the third chapter could not be updated. This one will make up for yesterday's. In the myriad Poison Mountains, Jianchen quickly made his way to the agreed location with Rum Guinness. With the speed of the illusory flash, he arrived very quickly. Not long after Jianchen arrived, a white figure leapt over from the distance. It was as fast as a streak of light, only slightly slower than Jianchen with the illusory flash. In just a few seconds, the white figure stopped in front of Jianchen. It was Rum Guinness in her beast form again. Rum Guinness gently looked at the tiger in Jianchen's arms. Her eyes were filled with reluctance as she sighed. "Your strength really does surprise me. So many people couldn't stop you. I heard those people say that your name is Jianchen, right?" "Yes, my name is Jianchen," Jianchen calmly replied. "Then I'll call you Jianchen in the future." "Jianchen, I can't use any power right now. I can only rely on my physical strength. so I won't be able to help you in the future. In order to prevent the kings of the Gilligan clan from finding me, I need to find a remote place to hide in the coming days, so I'll leave my child in your care." Rum Guinness spoke the human language. Perhaps it was because of its tiger form, but it was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman from its voice. Gentian solemnly nodded. "Don't worry, I'll definitely take good care of your child. Once I have the power to purge the dark energy in your body, I'll come find you." With that, Gentian thought of something and asked, "Oh, right. How do I find you in the future?" The white tiger plucked a strand of hair from its body and dripped a droplet of blood on it, dyeing it red. It then passed it to Gentian and said, "If you want to find me, then let my child drip a droplet of blood on this strand of hair. This strand of hair will guide you." Gentian carefully accepted the strand of fur and stored it away. "Gentian, the things you've drawn on your face can fool a few Heaven Saint Masters, but they can't fool Saint Rulers and Class 7 magical beasts like us. You need to be careful in the future," the tiger suddenly said. With that, Gentian wiped his face and bitterly smiled. His disguise was flawless, able to fool everyone. No one could see through his disguise, but he had never thought that it would be useless before a Saint Ruler. The white tiger glanced at its child one last time before bidding farewell to Gentian and disappearing from Chen's sight very soon. Woo 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 woo. The little tiger in Gentian's arms closed its eyes and whimpered. It was unknown whether it was sad for its mother's departure or bidding farewell to its mother. Its short limbs unconsciously struggled in Gentian's arms, as if it wanted to stand up with its own strength. Gentian gently stroked the little tiger's furry head with his right hand, as if he was comforting it. His gaze towards the little tiger also became gentler. Gentian didn't stay for long and quickly left. He knew that the 10,000 Poisons mountain range was no longer safe, so he couldn't stay here any longer. Therefore, he moved very quickly, his feet barely touching the ground. Using the trees on both sides as support, he quickly shot off into the distance. After Gentian left, a large group of people still gathered outside the cave where the tiger had been. They were unwilling to leave, and the leaders of the various forces were all shaking their heads and sighing with disappointment. A Class 6 magical beast cub had appeared in front of them, but in the end it had been snatched away by the mercenary King Gentian, who had won first place in the mercenary tournament. This made them feel extremely unwilling. Suddenly, a huge aura rapidly spread from the distance, enveloping the entire mountain range. The people gathered below were immediately alarmed, and each of them had a serious expression as they looked around for the owner of this aura. Very quickly, a burst of whistling sounds could be heard. An old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion was flying over from the distance, and finally hovered above the people's heads. A pair of eyes as sharp as an eagle's coldly looked down on the people below, without the slightest trace of emotion, as if he was the high and mighty king. Heaven Saint Master. That's actually a Heaven Saint Master. A small commotion broke out in the crowd, one after another. Forcibly suppressed cries of surprise rang out from the crowd. Everyone raised their heads to look at the sky, and one after another, their gazes were filled with envy, yearning, fear, worship, and other complex emotions as they gathered on the old man. Seeing this old man, the people of the Heian clan were all overjoyed. The leader immediately knelt down and said, "By Yuan Jin of the Heian clan greets the ancestor." "We greet the ancestor." The people of the Heian clan all followed Elder Bai's example and knelt down on both knees, all of them emotionally shouting. The old man hovering in the air glanced around and said indifferently, "Where's the cub of the Class 6 magical beast?" Reporting to the ancestor, "The cub of the Class 6 magical beast has been taken away by someone," Elder Bai said, and then worriedly looked at the old Heaven Saint Master hovering in the air. Hearing this, a light flashed through the eyes of the ancestor of the Heian clan. He said, "I wonder which organization has taken it." Ancestor, the one who took the cub of the Class 6 magical beast, is the champion of this year's mercenary tournament, Genshin. He is very powerful, and his speed is also very fast. Even with so many of us, we were unable to stop him. Elder Bai said. Genshin, it's actually him. The ancestor of the Heiyun clan frowned and hesitated for a while. Then a harsh light flashed through his eyes, and he asked, "Where did Genshin escape to?" "Over there." Elder Bai pointed in the direction Genshin had escaped. Now he could only place all of his hopes on the ancestor. Whether or not the Heiyun clan could obtain the cub of the Class 6 magical beast would all depend on him. The ancestor of the Heiyun clan immediately flew in the direction Elder Bai had pointed, and soon disappeared from everyone's sight. "Quick, immediately report this to the sect. Now we can only ask for the ancestor's help. Quickly send a few people back and report this to the Patriarch. Ask him to make a decision." The appearance of the Heaven Saint Master of the Heiyun clan had stimulated all the other organizations, and they all began to send people back to the clan to report this matter. At this moment, Genshin was using the illusory flash to quickly travel through the Thousand Poisons mountain range. He did not travel in a straight line, but would change directions from time to time to prevent people from chasing after him. 2 hours later, Genshin had already traveled over 100 kilometers through the steep mountain range and arrived at the edge of the Thousand Poisons mountain range. He then found a secluded place to hide his presence and placed the sleeping white tiger beside his feet and began to recover his overused Saint Force. After the previous battle, Genshin had used up 2/3 of his Saint Force in just 2 hours to escape using the illusory flash. Now that his identity had been exposed, and with the possibility of a Heaven Saint Master chasing after him, Genshin needed to preserve his battle prowess at all times. The white tiger was only the size of a puppy, and it was currently snoring by Genshin's feet. The pair of snow-white wings on its back were tightly folded. If one didn't look carefully, they would be hard to notice. Genshin sat cross-legged on the ground, and with the help of the sword spirits, he absorbed the energy within the monster cores at an unbelievable speed to recover his Saint Force. His entire body was covered by weeds, so it was very hard to notice him. For hours later, a sound of air being torn rang out, and a gray, robed figure quickly flew over Genshin's head, disappearing very quickly. Genshin, who was recovering his Saint Force, naturally noticed the figure flying over his head. His heart tightened, and he thought to himself, "So fast, that's probably a Heaven Saint Master of the Heiyun clan. I never thought that after changing so many paths, he would still be able to catch up to me. Fortunately, I hid well." Thinking up to here, Genshin's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and his face immediately changed. He thought to himself, "Not good. I've probably been discovered." Genshin immediately leapt up from the weeds, and using the illusory flash, he fled into the distance like a bolt of lightning. He had just been absorbing the energy within the monster cores to recover his Saint Force, and at such a close distance, the ripples of energy would definitely not be able to escape the notice of a Heaven Saint Master. Sure enough, as soon as Genshin left, the Heaven Saint Master who had just flown over Genshin returned. He immediately discovered Genshin, who had already fled 3 kilometers away, and without another word, chased after him with all his strength. Genshin used the illusory flash with all his strength and quickly traversed through the Thousand Poisons mountain range. However, the terrain of the mountain range was complex, and it was not as open as the plains, so he was unable to fully utilize the advantage of the illusory flash. He was simply unable to catch up to the Heaven Saint Master who was flying in the sky, and the distance between the two was rapidly closing. Seeing the Heaven Saint Master chasing after him, Genshin's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. He immediately stopped running, and with his left hand holding the sleeping tiger, he stood there with a serious expression on his face as he stared at the Heaven Saint Master who was rapidly approaching him. In his right hand he had already taken out the light wind sword, which emitted a faint purple and green light. After 4 hours of recuperation, Jian Chen's Saint Force had mostly recovered. Since he couldn't escape, he might as well give it a try. Furthermore, he had never fought against a Heaven Saint Master before, so he could use this opportunity to test the Heaven Saint Master's strength. Chapter 360. Jianchen refused without any hesitation. I'm sorry, I will protect this white tiger until it grows up. As long as I, Jianchen, am still alive, I will not allow anyone to have any ideas about it. Jianchen, why are you doing this? The growth of magical beasts has always been very slow. For a Class 6 magical beast to mature, it would take at least a few dozen years or even 100 years, and this is under the condition of using countless heavenly resources. With your talent, you would have already become a saint ruler in a few dozen years. You could have tamed an adult Class 6 magical beast. Why waste so much effort to raise a cub? Moreover, you even refused the tempting offer of our Heiyun clan. The Heaven Saint Master clearly did not want to become Jian Chen's enemy, so he tried to convince Jian Chen to give up. This was because every time the mercenary king successfully matured, he would become a Heaven Saint Master at the very least. Moreover, it was very likely that he would break through to become a saint ruler in the future, and the Heiyun clan clearly did not want to offend a future powerhouse. I, Jianchen, have always been a man of my words. You should just give up. If you want to take the white tiger away from me, then come and take it. Jianchen's gaze was sharp and his attitude was unyielding. He did not fear the Heaven Saint Master at all. The ancestor of the Heiyun clan secretly sighed and said, Jianchen, our Heiyun clan must obtain the Class 6 magical beast. If you insist on doing this, then I can only offend you. The light in Jianchen's eyes became sharper and sharper. In the end, it was like a sharp sword as he stared at the old man in the air with an oppressive aura. He loudly shouted, If you dare to make a move, then your Heiyun clan will become my, Jianchen's mortal enemy. In the future, I will annihilate your Heiyun clan. Hearing this, the expression of the old ancestor of the Black Cloud clan immediately changed. His originally calm gaze also became fierce. He said in a deep voice, Jianchen, have you considered the consequences of saying this? Although your talent is extraordinary with your current strength, you are not qualified to say such words to me. If you don't believe me, you can try. As long as you dare to make a move, then your Black Cloud clan will become my, Jianchen's, mortal enemy. I will destroy you one day. If you don't want to cause trouble for the Black Cloud clan, then retreat immediately. I, Jianchen, can pretend that nothing happened. Jianchen's gaze was sharp and his aura was threatening. His face was solemn, and it was obvious that he was serious and not threatening. The expression of the ancestor of the Heiyun clan became extremely gloomy. He had actually been threatened by a mere Earth Saint Master. Even though this Earth Saint Master possessed extraordinary talent, he still did not place him in the eyes of the ancestor. This was because the difference between a Heaven Saint Master and an Earth Saint Master was like the difference between heaven and earth. Previously, he had politely spoken to Jianchen only because of Jianchen's terrifying talent. He also wanted to befriend Jianchen. Perhaps in the future, the Black Cloud clan would have another saint ruler as a friend. However, Jianchen's threatening words made the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan extremely angry. As a Heaven Saint Master, his status was naturally very prominent. Even in the entire Tianyuan continent, in this era where saint rulers lived in seclusion, he was a true peak expert. Other Earth Saint Masters would all respectfully bow to him when they saw him. Who would dare to act like Jianchen, actually using the strength of an Earth Saint Master to threaten a Heaven Saint Master with a prominent status? Not only did Jianchen's attitude fail to intimidate the Black Cloud clan's old ancestor, he even completely enraged the Black Cloud clan's old ancestor, causing him to change his mind. With a gloomy face, he said, Good, what an arrogant brat. Our Black Cloud clan is determined to obtain the 6th rank magical beast young. Since you're not willing to hand it over, then I can only personally take it." With that, the old man extended his hand and grabbed. The energy of the world wildly surged, quickly condensing into a huge yellow sword in his right hand. It emitted surging waves of earth energy, and with a shake of his hand, he shot it at Jianqin. With a long whistle, Jianqin circulated the heaven-seizing fortune art, causing his battle prowess to increase by 3 times. From the 4th cycle of Earth Saint Master to the 5th cycle of Earth Saint Master, he was infinitely close to the 6th cycle of Earth Saint Master. With a frightening aura, Jianqin fearlessly rushed towards the old man. With a wave of his light wind sword, Jianqin shattered the huge yellow sword that the old man had shot out, turning it back into energy that floated in the air. Jianqin's speed did not decrease in the slightest as he shot towards the old man like a cannonball. His light wind sword carried a faint purple and green sword chi as it flew towards the old man's throat. The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor coldly snorted. With a wave of his sleeve, the energy of the world crazily surged. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a half-meter wide and 2-meter long pillar of earth in front of him, pressing down on Jianqin's head. With a wave of his light wind sword, Jianqin borrowed the power of the purple and green sword spirits to slice the pillar of earth into pieces like tofu. Finally, he arrived at the same height as the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor. His light wind sword transformed into a silver streak of lightning as it pierced towards the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor's throat. "You really do have some skill." The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor's eyes flashed as he lightly praised. A thick yellow sword quickly formed in his hand and blocked in front of him. Ding! A clear sound rang out as Jianqin's light wind sword was blocked. However, Jianqin's attack did not stop because of this. Borrowing the short amount of time that he was in the air, the light wind sword transformed into a sky full of sword images that continuously pierced towards the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor. The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor's face became serious. Jianqin's sword was just too fast. Even with his strength as a Heaven Saint Master, he still had to be cautious. In a short breath of time, Jianqin's sword had pierced out tens of times at an unimaginable speed, forcing the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor to only be able to defend himself. Soon after, Jianqin's body was no longer able to stay in the air as he slowly descended towards the ground. The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor's face became ugly as he coldly stared at the saint weapon in his hand. The surface of the sword was already densely covered with tens of rice-sized holes. His saint weapon had actually been damaged. Although the damage wasn't serious, it was still enough to make the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor's heart churn violently. Just what kind of power is this? It's actually so terrifying. The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor's heart trembled. This power was just too terrifying. As soon as Jianqin landed on the ground, he once again leapt into the air. The light wind sword once again pierced towards the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor. This time, the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor didn't just sit there and wait for his death. He took the initiative to attack. The heaven and earth energy surged and finally gathered on the yellow sword in his hand. With a wave of his sword, a huge yellow sword chi broke free from the sword's restraints and shot towards Jianqin. Being in the air, Jianqin had nowhere to go and could only brace himself to receive the sword chi from the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor. When the two collided, a loud explosion sounded out. Jianqin bore the brunt of the impact and was immediately forced back down to the ground by the powerful shock waves. Woo-woo-woo, woo-woo-woo. The white tiger in Jianqin's embrace seemed to have been frightened and woke up from its slumber. It let out an uneasy whimper as its 4 short limbs randomly kicked around in Jianqin's embrace. Its originally tightly closed eyes slowly opened at this moment. They were as bright as gems, pure and without any impurities. It was filled with curiosity as it looked at the outside world. Jianqin protected the white tiger in his embrace as his body landed on the ground in a sorry state. His face was slightly pale. Taking a Heaven Saint Master's attack head-on wasn't good either. Suddenly, a huge pressure descended from the sky. The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor had actually descended from the sky. The yellow sword in his hand surged with energy that caused Jianshin's expression to change as it mercilessly chopped towards Jianshin's head. Jianshin didn't dare to receive the attack of a Heaven Saint Master head-on. If he could dodge, he would use the illusory flash and leave behind an afterimage as he dodged. Boom! The Black Cloud Clan's ancestors' attack landed on the ground, causing dirt to fly up and the earth to shake. Where Jianshin had previously stood, a 5-meter wide and 10-meter deep crater had appeared. A black silhouette flashed by, but Jianshin wasn't frightened by the old ancestor's strength. Holding the light wind sword in his hand, he arrived in front of the old ancestor in a flash. The light wind sword was like a bolt of lightning as it pierced through the old ancestor's body, each strike faster than the previous one. The speed at which the old ancestor was struck was so fast that the old ancestor was struck with a dense amount of sword shadows. What a fast sword! The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor's face was solemn, but his heart was secretly shocked. Jianshin's sword was just too fast. Furthermore, every time the purple and green sword chi collided with a saint weapon, it would leave a rice-sized dent on his saint weapon. Although the damage to his saint weapon was very light and didn't affect him too much, as time passed, the damage to his saint weapon would become more and more severe. Sooner or later, it would cause some damage to his saint weapon. The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor's body was protected by a layer of saint chi. Although it couldn't block Jianshin's light wind sword, it was able to slow down its speed to a certain extent. Hurriedly blocking Jianshin's attacks, the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor quickly retreated, increasing the distance between him and Jianshin. With a loud roar, the huge sword in his hand emitted a dazzling yellow light. Immediately, a pressure that seemed to come from the heavens and earth pressed down on Jianshin's body, causing Jianshin to feel incomparably heavy. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on him, making it difficult for him to even move. Jianshin, you forced me to use a high-level Earth tier battle skill. You should be proud of yourself. The Black Cloud Clan's ancestor said in a deep voice. Without wasting any more words, he swung his sword towards Jianshin. Jianshin's eyes flashed as he circulated the heavens, stealing fortune art to its limit. His battle prowess increased by 3 times, making him infinitely close to a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master. Holding the light wind sword in his hand, he used all his strength to clash with the saint weapon of the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor, causing a violent explosion. The surging shock waves of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing the surroundings to become a complete mess. The earth on the ground was sent flying, and the entire mountain range shook as a spider web of cracks appeared in the ground. The Earth tier battle skill of the Black Cloud Clan's ancestor had caused Jianshin to suffer heavy injuries. His face became incomparably pale as his body flew far away, continuously spitting out blood from his mouth. Woo, 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 woo. The white tiger in Jianshin's embrace also suffered quite a bit. It let out a few hurried whimpers, as if it was crying because of the pain. Chapter 361. Jianshin, since you want to exterminate my Heiyun clan, then don't blame me for being merciless. For the sake of the Heiyun clan, I will kill you today. The ancestor of the Heiyun clan shouted. Immediately after, the yellow greatsword in his hand emitted a powerful sword chi that shot towards Jianshin. Although Jianshin was heavily injured, his battle prowess was still very strong. He immediately shot up from the ground and dodged the sword chi shot out by the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan. Boom! The sword chi shot out by the old ancestor of the Heiyun clan was like a highly explosive bomb, ruthlessly bombarding the place where Jianshin had been lying. Following a violent explosion, the soil and weeds were sent flying into the air, covering the sky and blocking the sun, completely blocking the line of sight. In the midst of the dust, Gentian's body shot towards the He Yun clan's ancestor like a cannonball. The light wind sword emitted a powerful sword chi and was surrounded by a layer of purple and green sword chi, making it very conspicuous. The He Yun clan's ancestors' eyes revealed a trace of disdain. What a pitiful life! However, you are still an Earth Saint Master. You are simply not my opponent. Resistance is futile. As soon as he finished speaking, the ancestor of the He Yun clan waved his huge sword. Another powerful sword chi broke free from the huge sword and shot towards Gentian with lightning speed. Gentian gritted his teeth and remained silent. His eyes flashed with a sharp light as he immediately used the illusory flash, leaving behind an afterimage in his original position. He narrowly dodged the sword chi and took the opportunity to appear in front of the He Yun clan's ancestor, thrusting out his light wind sword. The He Yun clan's ancestor sneered. The great sword in his hand once again emitted a dazzling yellow light. A powerful surge of energy shook the air, causing the space around the great sword to distort. At the same time, a powerful pressure once again descended on Gentian's body, causing Gentian's body to become extremely heavy. It was as if a large rock was pressing down on his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. The patriarch of the Black Cloud clan had once again used a high-grade Earth rank battle skill. With his strength as a Heaven Saint Master, using a high Earth tier battle skill was a piece of cake. He did not need to make any preparations and could use it instantly. I'd like to see how tough your life is. The eyes of the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan were cold and gloomy. He didn't conceal his strong killing intent. Shortly after, a yellow light flashed, and the huge sword in his hand stabbed towards Gentian as fast as lightning. Right now, Gentian's light wind sword was only a meter away from the ancestor's body. At this moment, his body was restricted by the pressure of the battle skill, making it difficult for him to even take a step forward. Every step he took required a great deal of energy. When the ancestor's attack landed on his body, his sword would definitely not be able to pierce through the patriarch's body. A strange smile suddenly appeared on Gentian's face. The light wind sword in his hand suddenly broke free from the restraints of his hand. It was as if it had transformed into an immortal sword. Without anyone controlling it, the sword flew out from Gentian's hand and pierced towards the ancestor's heart with an unbelievable speed. Pooh! This sudden turn of events caught the Black Cloud ancestor off guard. The light wind sword pierced through his heart and came out from his back, leaving behind a trail of blood. At the same time that the light wind sword pierced through the ancestor's heart, the huge sword in his hand also pierced through Gentian's chest. The surging energy contained within the huge sword was like a tidal wave that surged through Gentian's body. Gentian's 5 viscera and 6 bowels were pulverized. Finally, an intense wave of energy began to wreak havoc in Gentian's body. Gentian opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face became incomparably pale. The blood that flowed out from his chest quickly dyed the white fur of the little tiger in his arms red. Within Gentian's dantian, the azure and violet sword spirits trembled slightly. Immediately after, a formless suction force appeared and sucked in the energy that was still wreaking havoc in Gentian's body, preventing it from further destroying Gentian's chest. The ancestor of the Black Cloud clan was not in a good state either. His heart had been crushed by the light wind sword, and when the light wind sword had passed through his body, it had left behind an extremely pure sword chi that wreaked havoc in his body. Although he was a Heaven Saint Master, his 5 viscera and 6 bowels were much weaker than Gentian's. Even though the sword chi that the light wind sword had left in his body was not as strong as the sword chi that he had left in Gentian's body, it was still able to destroy his 5 viscera and 6 bowels, causing him to be heavily injured. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of the ancestor's mouth as he coldly stared at Gentian. In a deep voice, he said, "You truly are worthy of being the champion of the mercenary tournament, the king of mercenaries. You really do have some ability. I've underestimated you. to actually force me into such a miserable state. Even if you die, you should be proud." After saying that, the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan tightly gripped the great sword that had pierced through Jinshin's chest. Just as he was about to cut Jinshin's chest in half, an ear-piercing sound came from behind, causing the ancestor's face to change greatly. Pooh! The Black Cloud clan's ancestor's throat was immediately torn apart as blood spurted out from his throat. The light-wind sword that had pierced through his heart suddenly returned to its original path and pierced through his throat from behind while he was completely unprepared for it. The ancestor's face was filled with shock as he no longer cared about killing Jinshin. He immediately pulled out the great sword that had pierced through Jinshin's chest and flew up into the sky. So, the sound of the light-wind sword tearing through the air could be heard again. It was as if the light-wind sword had transformed into a divine sword that was brimming with intelligence. Without anyone controlling it, it flew up from below and chased after the ancestor at an extremely fast speed. The light-wind sword flashed under the ancestor's feet and dyed the sky red with blood. The ancestor's legs were immediately cut off and fell from the sky. The ancestor of the Black Cloud clan let out a blood-curdling scream as his body flew 500 meters into the sky. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked down at the light-wind sword that was flying alone in the sky. His face was filled with disbelief. Seeing the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan fly 500 meters into the sky, Jinshin's heart was also filled with shock. A Heaven Saint Master's life force was actually this strong. His light-wind sword had first pierced through the ancestor's heart and then through his throat, yet he was still alive. This was something that Jinshin found hard to believe. A Heaven Saint Master was not only strong, but also had a tenacious life force. It was a pity that he could only control the light-wind sword up to a range of 200 meters. Now that the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan was 500 meters in the air, there was nothing he could do. Even if he used his divine sense to control the light-wind sword, he wouldn't be able to reach that range. If he went beyond 200 meters, his control over the light-wind sword would become weaker and weaker. If he went beyond 300 meters, he would lose control of the sword. The light-wind sword turned into a streak of white light and flew back into Jinshin's hand. Even though Jinshin's face was pale and his body was heavily injured, he was still unwilling to let the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan go so easily. Purple and green sword chi were emitted from the light-wind sword. With a wave of his sword, more than 10 purple and green sword chi were shot into the sky by Jinshin. The ancestor of the Black Cloud clan floated high in the sky with a gloomy face. His current appearance was even more frightening. There was a fist-sized hole in his chest where his heart should have been. From this hole, one could even see the scene behind him. There was also a smaller hole in his neck. His throat had been ruptured and his flesh was mangled. It was a ghastly sight, but even so he was still alive. Seeing the purple and green sword chi coming from below, the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan hurriedly moved his body and dodged the attack. His eyes were filled with hatred as he glared at Jinshin and quickly flew away. Right now, the 2 wounds on his body were very serious. Although they wouldn't take his life in a short period of time, they still needed to be treated as soon as possible. If he continued to stay, then with Jinshin's strange abilities, he might really die here today. Jinshin had no way of stopping the ancestor from leaving. He could only stand there and watch as the ancestor disappeared from his sight. After the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan left, Jinshin also let out a sigh of relief. After today's battle, he had a certain understanding of Heaven Saint Masters. If it weren't for his spirit sword manipulation ability, then he really wouldn't have been able to heavily injure a Heaven Saint Master. The threat of the purple and green sword chi to these kind of experts was very small. It was unlike the Earth Saint Masters, where any saint weapon that was hit by the purple and green sword chi would be heavily injured. Looks like I have to think of a way to let the sword spirits recover. Only by letting them recover some of their strength will I be able to borrow even more sword chi. Genshin's face was pale as he sat on the ground in exhaustion. Now that the sword spirits were no longer a threat to Heaven Saint Masters, he had to think of a way to let them recover their strength. This was because the sword spirits in his Dantian were still very weak. Their strength was not even 1/10,000th of their peak state. The white tiger in his bosom was lying on Genshin's chest. It stuck out its tongue and licked the blood on Genshin's body with an expression of thirst. Genshin rested for a moment before taking the white tiger down from his chest and placing it on the ground beside him. He then sat down cross-legged and prepared to use his Radiant Saint Force to heal himself. Woo-woo, woo-woo. After leaving Genshin's chest, the white tiger immediately became unhappy. It continuously let out sounds of woo-woo as it struggled to crawl on the ground with its 4 short limbs. After a great deal of effort, it finally climbed onto Genshin's legs. Its 2 front paws leaned on Genshin's body as it stood up like a human and hungrily licked the blood on Genshin's body. Seeing the white tiger's appearance, Genshin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He endured the pain on his body and took off his blood-soaked clothes and threw them on the ground. He then gently placed the little tiger beside his blood-soaked clothes. Chapter 362. Afterwards, Genshin began to use his Radiant Saint Force to heal himself. Because he had used up a large amount of Radiant Saint Force to seal the white tiger rum, Guinness's Radiant Saint Force, he was unable to completely heal himself in one go. He only healed half of his Radiant Saint Force before stopping. Afterwards, he hugged the white tiger and found a secret cave to hide in before immediately recovering his Radiant Saint Force. The ancestor of the Heian clan had escaped with heavy injuries. Because he knew his location, Genshin did not know when the ancestor of the Heian clan would send reinforcements to deal with him. Therefore, he needed to quickly recover. Only with enough strength would he have the ability to escape. Otherwise, dragging a heavily injured body would not be able to escape far. Once a Heaven Saint Master caught up to him, he would not have the ability to deal with them. Genshin spent a day to finally recover his Radiant Saint Force. Afterwards, he immediately used his Radiant Saint Force to heal himself. Because Genshin's Radiant Saint Force had become much stronger, his control over his Radiant Saint Force had also become much stronger. Even though he was heavily injured, he only used an hour to fully recover. After fully recovering, Genshin did not rest. He immediately took out a Class 5 monster core from his space ring and began to replenish his Radiant Saint Force. During the battle with the Heaven Saint Master, Genshin's battle prowess had increased by 3 times, but the price was also huge. The consumption of Radiant Saint Force was 3 times higher than normal. Adding on the fact that his Radiant Saint Force had not recovered to its peak in the first place, Genshin was already on the verge of exhaustion. The recovery of Radiant Saint Force was extremely long. With the help of the Azure Sword Spirits, Genshin used a total of 10 hours to recover his Radiant Saint Force to its peak. Genshin, who had been sitting cross-legged on the ground, once again stood up. He took out a set of clothes from his space ring and put them on. Afterwards, he carried the still sleeping white tiger out of the cave. It was pitch black outside the cave. It was currently the wee hours of the morning. The poisonous gas in the Thousand Poisons mountain range was much stronger than it was during the day. However, the poisonous gas was extremely weak. To an Earth Saint Master, it was not a threat at all and could be completely ignored. Through the lush foliage above the forest, one could clearly see the stars that filled the entire sky. A full moon hung high in the sky, emitting a bright light. Genshin stood at the entrance of the cave with the sleeping white tiger in his arms. After confirming that it was safe, he silently left the cave. In this quiet night, Genshin did not dare to make too much noise. Genshin quickly ran through the pitch-black forest. Along the way, he discovered that there were burning torches everywhere in the Thousand Poisons mountain range. From a few words, Jianqin already knew that the Thousand Poisons mountain range had been sealed off by a few wealthy organizations. Moreover, they had used money to attract many people to enter the Thousand Poisons mountain range in search of a person carrying a white tiger. Jianqin knew that the Thousand Poisons mountain range was no longer safe, so he did not stop for even a moment. Using the cover of the night, he silently left the area and used the illusory flash to quickly flee into the distance. For hours later, Jianqin had already traveled over 1,000 kilometers in the dark night. At this moment, a city vaguely appeared in front of Jianqin's eyes. Jianqin immediately flew toward the city. In the end, he arrived at a remote area and directly leaped over the city wall, entering the city without anyone noticing. Because it was late at night, the city was extremely quiet. Even the inns were closed for the night. The large streets were deserted, and there was not a single shadow to be seen. Jianqin shuttled through the streets like a ghost with a little tiger in his arms. Very soon, he arrived in front of a medium-sized inn. He leaped onto the third floor of the inn and broke the window. He silently entered the inn without making the slightest sound. In the inn, Jianqin placed the white tiger on the bed. Afterwards, he took out a monster core and began to recover the saint force he had used on the way. The next morning, Jianqin once again disguised himself as a 30-year-old youth. He then carried the white tiger in his arms and covered it with his clothes. He swaggered out of the inn. On the first floor of the inn, the waiter suspiciously looked at Jianqin's back. He muttered, "The guests who stayed in the inn yesterday were pretty good. He didn't seem to be among them. Could it be that he took advantage of my absence to stay here?" After leaving the inn, Jianqin carried the white tiger that was covered by his clothes and wandered around the streets for a while. He then entered a shop that specialized in food and said, "Boss, do you have fresh magical beast milk for sale?" The boss of this shop was a 40-year-old weak, middle-aged man. Hearing Jianqin's words, his expression changed. He calmly looked at the bulging thing in Jianqin's arms and then smiled. Yes, of course we do. We have all kinds of magical beast milk. What kind of milk do you want, sir?" "Then give me some tiger milk. Pack a lot of it. I want it fresh. Money is not a problem," Jianqin said without hesitation. "All right, sir. Please wait a moment. I'll go get it for you." After saying that, the boss went to the back of the shop to get busy. Jianqin stood quietly in the shop and waited for the boss to get the milk. The white tiger in his arms had not eaten for 2 days. He did not know if the white tiger would be hungry, so he could only buy some magical beast milk to feed it. Soon, the time it took to burn a stick of incense passed. The boss who went to get the milk still did not appear. There was not even the slightest movement. Jianqin, who was waiting in the shop, finally showed a trace of impatience. However, in order to solve the food problem of the white tiger, he could only wait patiently. Then, the time it took to burn a stick of incense passed. The boss of the inn still did not appear. This made Jianqin vigilant. He decided not to continue waiting. He turned and walked out of the shop. At this moment, a group of armored soldiers appeared at the door of the shop and blocked Jianqin inside. "This is bad." Jianqin was shocked. He knew that something had happened. At this moment, a soldier who looked like the leader walked up. He stared at Jianqin with a sharp gaze and shouted, "Who are you? Tell me your name." Jianqin hesitated for a moment and said, "My name is Qin Yi. I don't know why you are looking for me." The leader of the soldiers' sharp gaze fell on the white tiger in Jianqin's arms. He shouted, "What are you holding in your arms? Show it." Jianqin's face darkened. He said, "What I'm holding in my arms is none of your business." "Humph. There have been quite a few cases of theft in the city recently. Are you holding stolen goods?" The leader of the soldiers shouted at Jianqin fiercely. Hearing this, Jianqin hesitated for a moment. Then he gently lifted a corner of his clothes, revealing the white tiger's head. At this moment, it was sleeping peacefully in Jianqin's arms. He said, "Then is this stolen goods from your city?" When the leader of the soldiers saw the white tiger's head, a gleam of light immediately flashed through his eyes. He said, "Quickly capture him. Immediately send someone to inform the city lord." The surrounding soldiers immediately charged at Jianchen. Several saint weapons slashed at Jianchen at the same time. Jianchen coldly snorted. With a flick of his finger, several sharp gusts of wind shot towards the surrounding soldiers, piercing through their chests. Then he arrived in front of the shop's counter and smashed the glass with a punch. He put all the milk products on the counter into his spatial ring. Finally, he calmly left the shop. Those soldiers only had the strength of a great saint. The leader was only a saint master. How could they stop Jianchen? After leaving the shop, Jianchen immediately rushed towards the city gate with the white tiger in his arms. He leaped on roofs and vaulted over walls. His speed was extremely fast. The people in the city all looked at him with astonished gazes. They couldn't stop talking about him. Quickly send a signal to the city lord's mansion. We found the target." The leader of the soldiers, whose chest had been pierced through, endured his injuries and shouted loudly. Soon, an ear-piercing sound of something breaking through the air rang out. A firework flew high into the sky and then exploded with a loud bang. Not long after, a figure flew out of the city lord's mansion. He directly flew in the air for 100 meters and rushed towards the direction of the explosion at an extremely fast speed. "Look, that person is actually flying in the air. Heavens, that's actually a Heaven Saint Master. Since when did our Lanfeng city have a Heaven Saint Master?" In front of the city gate, a general guarding the city stood on top of the city wall and shouted, "Quick! Immediately close the city gate. Everyone is forbidden from leaving. Those who violate this order will be killed without mercy. Archers, get ready. Strong 10-din crossbow carts. All of them aim into the city." Immediately, the soldiers in front of the gate began to get busy. The tall gate was closed very quickly, causing a few people who were about to leave the city to complain. Jianchen rushed all the way and arrived in front of the city gate very quickly. At this moment, the gate was already tightly closed. A large number of people who wanted to leave the city were jammed in front of the gate. Jianchen leaped up. He rose from the ground and leaped towards the city wall with lightning speed. He planned on jumping over the wall and leaving. "Release the arrows." The general on the wall immediately yelled out. Immediately, the archers who had already been prepared released the arrows in their hands. At the same time, countless crossbow bolts as thick as an arm were fired from the crossbow carts. They shot towards Jianchen like moths to a flame. Jianchen sneered. Saint force surged out of his body, causing his body that was already 20 meters above the ground to rise by an unbelievable amount. He dodged all the incoming arrows. "Release the arrows, quickly release the arrows and stop him," the general on the wall yelled out. The soldiers immediately became busy. They began to prepare for the second wave of attacks. However, Jianchen's speed exceeded their expectations. Before the soldiers could even knock their arrows, Jianchen had already approached the wall. He shot past the general and kicked off the battlements of the wall, increasing his speed once again. He crossed the wall with lightning speed and quickly disappeared into the distance. "Commander, he's escaped. What do we do? Should we chase after him? Commander, should we send people after him?" A few people who seemed to be captains hurriedly asked the commander, but they did not receive any response. "Commander, what do we do now?" A captain carefully asked. Chapter 363. Outside the city was a plain. After Jianchen left the city, he quickly ran across the plain. His feet touched the ground, but with each step he could cover a distance of over 20 meters. Although he did not use the illusory flash, his speed was still very fast. After experiencing what had happened in the city, Jianchen knew that the nearby cities were no longer safe. The large organizations must have notified the government to place a bounty on him. As soon as he entered the city, he would be discovered, because the white tiger in his arms was just too eye-catching, And because he had promised Rum Guinness that he would help take care of his child, the white tiger had to be with him. Right now, it was so weak that it did not even have the ability to protect itself. If he left it in the wilderness, it would probably be discovered by some passing mercenaries or eaten by other beasts. At this moment, Jianchen, who was running across the plain, seemed to sense something. He turned around and looked behind him. This glance made his face become extremely ugly. In the sky behind him, a figure was flying several hundred meters in the air, quickly chasing after him. Jianchen's heart slightly sank. He had just fought with the ancestor of the Heian clan in the 1,000 Poison Mountain range, so he knew the strength of a Heaven Saint Master. Even if he used everything he had, he would only be able to injure his opponent. This was because the difference between a Heaven Saint Master and an Earth Saint Master was just too great. Even if Jianchen used the Stealing Fortune ability to increase his battle prowess by 3 times, he would still not be able to kill an expert like the Heaven Saint Master. Moreover, if the Heaven Saint Master wanted to escape, he could only watch him leave. This was because the Heaven Saint Master could control the energy of the world to fly. This was an ability that Jianchen currently did not possess. Jianchen stared at the flying Heaven Saint Master with a serious expression. After a moment of thought, he immediately used the illusory flash. His speed suddenly skyrocketed, turning into a blur as he shot off into the distance. His speed was more than 10 times faster than before. Jianchen's sudden increase in speed immediately increased the distance between him and the Heaven Saint Master. However, the Heaven Saint Master behind him also sped up as fast as he could, following closely behind Jianchen. The distance between the two of them was rapidly closing. Jianchen had only just grasped the basics of the Heaven Tier battle skill, the illusory flash. Even though it increased his speed by a lot, he was still unable to surpass a Heaven Saint Master flying at full speed. After all, one of them was running on the ground while the other was flying in the air. Jianchen, you won't be able to escape. You should return the seal of Treasure Mountain to the Sure clan. Don't waste your energy. At this moment, the Heaven Saint Master suddenly spoke. His thunderous voice boomed from the horizon, echoing through the region. Hearing this familiar voice, Jianchen looked back and discovered that the Heaven Saint Master flying in the air was actually someone he had met once in Mercenary City, one of the 4 elders of the Kai clan. Jianchen silently continued to flee into the distance. Although he had the strength to fight against a Heaven Saint Master, he had no plans to do so. Even if he could repel the 4 elders of the Kai clan, he would have to pay a heavy price and lose the ability to move. If he were to encounter another pursuer, he would not be able to resist at all. Jianchen, you should return the seal of Treasure Mountain to the Sure clan. You won't be able to escape. Perhaps you still don't know, but the Sure clan and the Jetta clan have already joined forces. Aside from us 4 brothers, there are 4 other Heaven Saint Masters pursuing you. Ever since we learned that you had appeared in the 1,000 Poisons mountain range, the 8 of us have been waiting for you in the nearest city. I just used a special method to contact the other 7, and they will be here soon. You won't be able to escape. The 4 elders of the Kai clan who were chasing Jianchen spoke again. Hearing this, Jianchen's face immediately became ugly. He never thought that there would be 8 Heaven Saint Masters pursuing him. With his current strength, dealing with 1 Heaven Saint Master was already difficult enough, let alone 8. If 8 Heaven Saint Masters were to work together, he would not be able to resist at all. Jianchen did not slow down at all and immediately took out a map, imprinting the surrounding geography into his mind. He then chose a direction. Without holding back, he began to circulate the Heaven's Fortune art, increasing his speed by 3 times. He was now twice as fast as the 4 elders of the Kai clan, leaving a trail of afterimages behind him. The dust on the ground had already formed a long yellow dragon. Jianchen's sudden increase in speed caused the 4 elders of the Kai clan to be dumbfounded. Their faces were filled with disbelief as they watched Jianchen disappear into the distance. With a shocked voice, they muttered, "How is this possible? How can he be so fast? At this point, the 4 elders of the Kai clan were unable to catch up to Jianqin even if they used all their strength. They could only watch as Jianqin disappeared from their sight. However, the 4 elders of the Kai clan did not give up. They continued to chase in the direction that Jianqin had disappeared with all their might. At the same time, they rose 1,000 meters into the air and chased after the yellow dragon that Jianqin had left behind. Jianqin had never experienced such speed in his life. Right now, he could no longer see the road clearly. The scenery around him was rapidly passing by, forming a blurry blur. Using the illusory flash and the Heaven's Fortune art at the same time allowed Jianqin to surpass Heaven's Saint Masters in speed. However, it also consumed an extremely large amount of Saint Force. With his strength as a 4th cycle Earth Saint Master, he could only maintain it for 2 hours. After 2 hours, he would run out of Saint Force. He would lose the ability to flee. Feeling the Saint Force in his body rapidly depleting, Jianqin hurriedly took out a Class 5 monster core from his space ring. He recovered as he ran. This way he could at least buy himself some time. After 2 hours, Jianqin had already traveled over 2,000 kilometers. Although he passed by quite a few cities along the way, Jianqin did not dare to enter any of them. He was afraid that something like what had happened in Lanfeng City would happen again. When Jianqin's Saint Force was about to run out, Jianqin had already arrived at an extremely large mountain range with a white tiger in his arms. The mountain range was barren and towered into the clouds. There were very few green plants. Jianqin carried the white tiger deep into the mountain range. In the end, he arrived at a stone forest at the bottom of the cliff. Brandishing his sword, he shot out a few powerful sword chi. In a very hidden place, he dug out a cave. After cleaning up the outside traces, he blocked the entrance with a huge rock, perfectly concealing the cave. After doing all this, Jianqin weakly walked into the cave. From his space ring, he took out a fist-sized luminous pearl and inserted it into the top of the cave, providing some light in the pitch-black cave. Woo-woo-woo. Woo-woo-woo. At this time, the white tiger in his arms was constantly crying. Its small mouth that had not yet grown teeth was randomly biting on Jianqin's arm. Its short limbs were kicking around in Jianqin's arms. From time to time, its stomach would make a rumbling sound. It was obviously hungry. Seeing this scene, Jianqin also knew that the white tiger was hungry. He quickly took out a bottle of milk from an unknown magical beast from his space ring and began to feed the white tiger. It had not eaten for 2 whole days. If it was a human baby, perhaps it would have been hungry to the point that it did not have the strength to cry out. The white tiger drank no less than 20 caddies of milk before finally burping in satisfaction. Seeing this, Jianqin was incomparably shocked. Because the white tiger's body was only so big, he really could not understand how the white tiger's small body could contain 20 caddies of milk. Jianqin's milk added up to about 100 caddies. The white tiger drank 1/5 of his savings. If the white tiger's appetite was always so big, then the milk on his body would only be enough to feed it 4 times. It seems that I need to quickly collect some milk. I don't know what else it can eat apart from milk. Although heavenly treasures can allow the white tiger to grow quickly, I don't have any heavenly treasures right now. Jianqin secretly muttered to himself as he threw away a few empty bottles. After the white tiger filled its stomach, it lay down beside Jianqin and closed its eyes to sleep. Its small body that was curled up into a ball looked very cute. The pair of wings on its back were tightly folded, but if one looked closely, it was really hard to notice. After that, Jianqin did not stay idle. Holding a Class 5 monster core in each hand, he began to absorb the energy inside to recover. Using the illusory flash and the art of stealing Heaven's Fortune, he continuously traveled for 2 hours. Jianqin was so tired that he almost collapsed. 10 hours later, Jianqin stood up from the ground. With the help of the sword spirits, his speed of absorbing energy was much faster than ordinary people. In just a short 10 hours, his saint force that had almost been completely depleted had once again recovered to its peak. Jianchen walked to the edge of the cave and used a small crack to observe the situation outside. It was still early outside, and the scorching sun had already set in the west. Jianchen was not in a hurry to leave. He withdrew his aura and stood at the entrance of the cave without moving. He observed the situation outside through a small crack in the rock that blocked the entrance. An hour later, a figure appeared in the distant sky in Jianchen's line of sight. It flashed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, another figure wearing a fiery red robe appeared in Jianchen's line of sight and disappeared in a flash. Jianchen observed the cave for 4 hours and discovered a total of 5 different figures flying in the sky. They flashed in his line of sight and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The sky outside gradually darkened as the sun set in the west. Jianchen furrowed his brows and returned to the cave to sit down cross-legged, thinking about what to do next. From his previous observations, he knew that the outside of the mountain range was being monitored by 8 Heaven Saint Masters from the Shi family and the Jetta family. They were constantly looking for him. Although the cave he was in was very well hidden, and the entrance was blocked by a large rock, it would not be long before they discovered it. Staying here was not a long-term solution. Chapter 364. Jianchen sat cross-legged in the cave as he adjusted his state of mind. Although this was not a good place to stay, now was not the time to leave. He had to wait until the night to quietly leave. That way, the chances of being discovered would be very small. It was already evening outside, and the world was shrouded in darkness. At the peak of the tallest mountain, 8 old men sat cross-legged in a circle. The whistling wind at the peak of the mountain blew on their bodies, causing their hair to be slightly messy and their clothes to flutter in the wind. Kai Lao-san, are you sure that Jianchen is in this mountain range? A red-robed old man looked at one of the 4 elders of the Kai family and asked. Kai Lao-san nodded and said, although his speed was very fast and left me far behind, I was still able to accurately deduce that he had arrived in this mountain range based on the traces he had left behind. Then, can you pinpoint his exact location in this mountain range? The old man beside Kai Lao-san asked. He was the 3rd elder of the Jetta family. Kai Lao-san shook his head. I can't find him. This mountain range is very complicated and there are rocks everywhere. Even if he did leave behind some traces, it would be very difficult to find. The old men fell silent. They agreed with Kai Lao-san's words because they had been searching this mountain range for half a day, and not only had they not found any traces, they had not even found a single clue. At this moment, the eldest brother of the Kai family said, "Third brother, I just heard you say that Jianchen's speed has become extremely fast, leaving you far behind. Is that true?" Kai Lao-san couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as he recalled the scene of him chasing after Jianchen. Still shocked, he said, "Yes, Jianchen's speed was indeed very fast. It was actually twice as fast as my speed. If Jianchen were to show that kind of speed again, I think even 3rd elder would not be able to catch him." As he said that, Kai Lao-san looked at the 3rd elder of the Shi family. "Bullshit. The 3rd elder is a Heaven Saint Master of the Wind attribute, and his strength has reached the 4th cycle. Unless you encounter a Heaven Saint Master of the Wind attribute who is even more powerful than the 3rd elder, no one can catch up to his speed." The hot-tempered 4th brother opened his mouth and cursed. He was obviously very angry that Kai Lao-san had said that the 3rd elder's speed was not as fast as Jianchen's. "4th brother." The 3rd elder raised his hand and stopped the furious 4th brother. No matter what, the relationship between the 4 brothers of the Kai family and the Shi family was extremely special. At the same time, the 4 of them were Heaven Saint Masters, so their statuses were no lower than the 4th brothers. It was unavoidable for the 4 brothers to become unhappy when the 4th brother insulted them without giving them any face. Hearing the fourth brother's insults, the four brothers' expressions turned ugly. The four of them had a common enemy, so when the fourth brother insulted one of them, it was equivalent to insulting all four of them. Sirs, fourth brother's temper has always been irritable, so please forgive him for the disrespect in his tone. I apologize to you on behalf of fourth brother, and I hope you won't take it to heart. The third elder's expression was amiable as he cupped his hands and apologized to the four Kai brothers, his face full of sincerity. Only then did the expressions of the four Kai brothers turn for the better. It wasn't that they weren't aware of their fourth brother's violent temper, so they didn't really take it to heart. In addition, the third elder's apology made the displeasure in their hearts disappear completely. No matter what, the Sure family wasn't a family that the four of them could afford to offend. Let's discuss a plan. We must find Jianqin in the shortest time possible. He is carrying the treasures of both our families. We cannot afford to lose him. One of the elders of the Jetta family suggested, but this place is so big, who knows where Jianqin is hiding? With just the few of us, how are we supposed to find him? I think we should ask the family for help and have them send more people to help us find him. Or maybe we should hire a few large mercenary groups to help us search the mountain. The fourth brother of the Sure family said with some vexation, Jianqin had been tormenting them for the past few days. I think this plan is feasible. Another elder of the Jetta family said in agreement. The third elder of the Sure family pondered for a while and said, Jianqin is a very clever person. If we can think of something like this, he will definitely be able to think of something as well. Moreover, this method has already been used once in the Thousand Poisons mountain range. He will definitely be prepared. Who knows, he might try to slip away tonight when we are not paying attention. Therefore, tonight is the most crucial time. I suggest that the 8 of us spread out, and each one of us will be responsible for one area to prevent Jianqin from escaping. Tomorrow morning, one of us will go to a nearby city and hire a few large mercenary groups to seal off the mountain range. Good, that's a good idea. Let's do that. The third elder's suggestion was unanimously approved by everyone. Following that, the 8 of them were assigned to their respective areas and dispersed. In the dim cave, Jianqin was still sitting cross-legged on the ground, adjusting his state of mind. Although it was already late at night, Jianqin had no intention of leaving immediately. Time passed by slowly, and soon it was 4 a.m. The white tiger that had been sleeping by Jianqin's feet had also woken up early. It was currently crawling around the dark cave in high spirits, letting out whimpers from time to time. It was having a lot of fun. Jianqin slowly opened his eyes and stood up. He went to the entrance of the cave to listen for any movements outside. After that, he returned to the cave and retrieved the night illumination pearl. Carrying the white tiger in his arms, he walked out of the cave. Arriving at the entrance of the cave, Jianqin carefully moved away the boulder that was blocking the entrance. He was afraid that he would make too much noise and alert the Heaven Saint Masters hidden in the night. The white tiger in Jianqin's arms seemed to have sensed the danger hidden in the night. It quietly stayed in Jianqin's arms, not daring to move. Its small head looked around, its pair of bright and pure eyes curiously looking around. Jianqin used the cover of the night to silently leave the cave. Then, like a ghost flying in the night, he silently leapt between the mountains. He concealed his presence and moved forward without making a single sound. Along the way, he did not make the slightest movement. At this moment, on a tall mountain 10 kilometers away from Jianqin, there was an old man sitting with his legs crossed. As if he had fused with the world, he was doing his best to sense everything around him. Heaven Saint Masters not only possessed the ability to control the energy of the world to fly, they could also sense all the changes in the energy of the world around them. At this moment, the old man abruptly opened his eyes. At that moment, 2 visible streaks of light flashed through his eyes. There are fluctuations in the energy of the world over there. There's a slight sound of something breaking through the air. The old man's eyes suddenly became sharp. He then stood up and immediately flew into the sky like a ghost. After a few seconds, the old man landed on another mountain. The night had completely covered his figure, making it impossible to detect him. The old man's sharp eyes scanned the area below. Not long after, a black figure that constantly leapt between the mountains appeared in his sight. "I've finally found you." A trace of joy appeared in the old man's eyes. Without any hesitation, he immediately flew toward the black figure. At this moment, the black figure seemed to have discovered the old man in the sky. Its speed suddenly increased, and it flew off into the distance with a few leaps. "Jianchen, where do you think you're going?" The old man immediately roared out. He then increased his speed to the limit, chasing after the black figure with an ear-piercing sound. In the silent night, the old man's roar traveled very far, allowing the other 7 Heaven Saint Masters guarding the mountain range to hear it clearly. Immediately, a few long cries rang out in the night. The 7 Heaven Saint Masters, who had heard the commotion, quickly rushed over. Jianchen, who was leaping between the mountains, was like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. He no longer concealed himself and quickly fled out of the mountain range. The world was covered in darkness, but this did not affect the Heaven Saint Masters much. The old man who had discovered Jianchen continued to fly in the sky, chasing after Jianchen with all his strength. Like this, Jianchen very quickly left the mountain range. He then hastily chose a direction and used the illusory flash and the heavens stealing fortune at the same time. His body disappeared into the night like an arrow released from a bow. In an instant he was far away, leaving a long trail of dust behind him. He was like a long dragon hiding in the night. With Jianchen's speed from using the illusory flash and the heavens stealing fortune at the same time, he very quickly shook off the Heaven Saint Master who was chasing after him. Afterwards, Jianchen slowed down slightly and stopped using the heavens stealing fortune. He changed directions and continued to advance. This was because he knew that if he moved too quickly, the wind he created would blow up the dust on the ground. As long as the Heaven Saint Master behind him followed the dust, they would be able to easily find him. Not long after Jianchen slowed down, a dazzling azure light suddenly appeared in the pitch-black sky in the distance. It then quickly chased after Jianchen. God damn it, there's actually a wind attributed Heaven Saint Master. Jianchen cursed. He had no choice but to increase his speed again. He used both the illusory flash and the heavens stealing fortune at the same time. Only then did he slowly shake off the wind attributed Heaven Saint Master. The wind attributed Heaven Saint Master. Chasing after him was the 3rd elder of the Sure family. He was also the old man who had failed to force Jianchen to hand over the ruler armament with poison. Seeing the distance between him and Jianchen grow larger and larger, the 3rd elder was unable to hide his shock. Looks like Kai Lao San was right. This Jianchen's speed really is unbelievably fast. Even I can't catch up to him. It's hard to imagine how an Earth Saint Master can be so fast. Chapter 365. Jianchen quickly pondered as he ran. Soon after, he changed his direction again, flying towards a city 1,000 kilometers away. Jianchen had already memorized the surrounding geography. 1,000 kilometers away, there just happened to be a first-class city. Now that there was a wind attributed Heaven Saint Master chasing after him, even if Jianchen could shake him off, it would only be temporary. Once he stopped, the Heaven Saint Master behind him would catch up very quickly. As a result, blindly running in the wilderness was no longer a solution. Once he ran out of saint force, he would be doomed eternally. As a result, he needed to enter the city and use the dense crowd and complex buildings to hide himself. Very soon, Jianchen ran for 1,000 kilometers and arrived in front of the first-class city. He directly leaped over the tall walls and disappeared into the dense buildings with a few flashes. Not long after Jianchen disappeared, a green speck of light suddenly appeared in the sky behind him. The third elder of the Shur family flew over from afar and hovered in the pitch-black sky. He coldly stared down and said in a deep voice, "What a cunning brat. He actually hid in the city. Looks like you can't maintain that speed for long." Afterward, the third elder hovered in the air without moving. His sharp eyes pierced through the pitch-black sky, closely observing everything below in an attempt to find traces of Genshin. After an incense stick's worth of time, the sound of something tearing through the air rang out from behind. The other 7 Heaven Saint Masters had arrived at the same time. In the end, they all hovered beside the third elder and stared at the city below. Third elder, is Genshin hiding in the city? The fourth elder asked from the side. The third elder gently sighed and said, "This Genshin's speed is just too shocking. I chased with all my strength, but still couldn't catch up to him. In the end, he escaped into the city below and disappeared. I don't know where he's hiding now. This is impossible. Third elder, is Genshin really that fast? Even you can't catch up to him?" Fourth elder's eyes were wide open. His face was filled with disbelief. Not only him, but even the 2 elders of the Jetta family were dumbfounded. They found it hard to believe that an Earth Saint Master could be faster than a Heaven Saint Master with the wind attribute. A faint smile appeared on the Kai family's third brother's face when he heard that. Even a wind-attributed Heaven Saint Master could not catch up to Genshin, so it seemed like it was not embarrassing for Genshin to escape from his hands. This Genshin is too cunning. He actually hid in the city. With so many people and so many buildings, it would be very difficult to find him. An elder of the Jetta family said with a gloomy expression, "That Genshin is too cunning. He actually hid in the city. There are so many people and so many buildings. It would be very difficult to find him. Everyone, it is almost dawn. We should quickly deploy our forces. It was not easy to find him, and we cannot let him slip away again." The Shur family's third elder said, "How about this? Out of the 8 of us, one of us will go to the city lord's mansion and have the city lord mobilize the garrison to help us find him. The rest of us will stand guard at the north, south, east, and west gates, as well as the more remote areas of the city walls to prevent Genshin from escaping." An elder of the Jetta family suggested. The third elder of the Shur family nodded and said, "That's the only thing we can do now. I'll go inform the city lord's estate. The 7 of you will guard the perimeter of the city, especially the 4 city gates. Make sure to keep a tight watch. Every person who enters or exits must wash their face with water to prevent Genshin from slipping away. If anyone disobeys, kill them without mercy." After the division of labor was completed, the 8 Heaven Saint Masters began to move out. In a spacious manner in the city, groups of guards in tight robes patrolled the grounds with torches in their hands. With a single glance, one could tell that the people living here were of high status. Not long after the patrolling guards left, a black shadow flashed out from the nearby weeds. Its speed was extremely fast, disappearing in a flash in the dark night. In the end, it silently entered a room that had been empty for a long time. This black shadow was none other than Genshin. Genshin chose a room that had not been inhabited for a long time and hid inside. He then pricked up his ears to listen for any movements outside. After confirming that it was safe, he sat down in a corner with the white tiger in his arms and immediately took out 2 Class 5 monster cores to recover his Saint Force. The white tiger seemed to have sensed that Genshin was in danger and was very well behaved throughout the journey. It obediently lay in Genshin's arms without making a sound. Its big bright eyes looked around with curiosity. In the dark room, its ears were pricked up high as it lay quietly beside Genshin. It did not move around randomly, as if it was very intelligent. In the blink of an eye, the sky was bright. At noon, Genshin had finally recovered to his peak state. He stood up from the ground and looked around. This room had indeed not been inhabited for a long time. A thick layer of dust had accumulated on the ground, and the furnishings inside were relatively simple. It seemed that if it was not for servants, then it was a room prepared for them. Jianchen wandered around the room for a while before his eyes fell on his space ring. After a slight hesitation, he took out a space ring, a few monster cores, and some coins. He divided the items into 2 parts and placed them into 2 different space rings. 2 king weapons, heaven-tier battle skills, and other valuable items were placed in 1 space ring. The other space ring only contained some spare clothes, a few monster cores, and some coins. After that, Jianchen took off the space ring on his finger and placed the space ring containing the heaven-tier battle skills and other valuable items into a fist-sized metal box. He planned to find a place to hide them. Now that he was surrounded by 8 Heaven Saint Masters in the city, his survival was uncertain. He had to be prepared and find a place to hide the space ring containing the most valuable items. Even if he died, he did not want these items to fall into the hands of the Shi family or the Jetta family. If he survived this calamity, he could come back and take back the space ring after the storm passed. After locking the space ring in the metal box, Jianchen thought for a moment and quickly opened the metal box. He took out the 2 king weapons, the cloud-severing sword and the seal of Treasure Mountain, and placed them into the 3rd space ring. He knew that the 3rd elder of the Shi family had a way to sense the location of the king weapons. In order to prevent his space ring from being found, he had to separate the king weapons from the space ring containing the valuable items. Very quickly, night fell and the manor was quiet. Jianchen gently opened the door to check the situation outside. Then, with the white tiger in his arms, he turned into a black shadow and disappeared. In a few flashes, he arrived in front of the manor's well. He threw the metal box containing the space ring into the well and immediately returned to his room. Leaping onto the huge beam of the roof, a sharp sword chi shot out from his finger and pierced a finger-sized hole in the beam. Jianchen placed the space ring containing the 2 king weapons into the small hole and then found something to cover the hole. From the outside, it was difficult to see what was inside. Everything was done in secret. After doing all this, Jianchen finally let out a sigh of relief. This way, even if something happened to him, he wouldn't let the people of the 2 great families take advantage of him. At dawn, Jianchen disguised himself and then hugged the cute white tiger in his arms. He gently stroked its little head and said in a low voice, "Little tiger, I have to go out and scout the situation. I can't bring you with me. You must be obedient and stay here. Don't run around, okay?" The white tiger looked at Jianchen with its bright eyes. It was unknown whether it understood Jianchen's words or not. Jianchen didn't care too much. He took out some milk and fed the white tiger until it was full. Then he placed the white tiger under the bed and left. From a remote place, Jianchen easily climbed over the wall of the house and arrived at the main street. He then went around to the front of the manor and pretended to be a passerby. He took the opportunity to see what kind of place this manor was. This would make it easier for him to find it in the future. Above the manor's gate, there was a huge signboard with the words Huangpu Merchant written in flamboyant calligraphy. This was a family that focused on business. After memorizing the name of the Huangpu Merchant House, Jianchen left the place without a change in expression. He then began to wander around the streets. A first-class city was very large and much more prosperous than a second-class city. Those who could enter a first-class city were all beautiful people or mercenaries with some ability. The degree of prosperity was much higher than a second-class city. Suddenly, a burst of noise came from the front. A group of armored soldiers were searching for something in the shops. On the way, they kept asking the passers-by questions, causing the surrounding people to talk and complain. At this time, Jianchen was stopped by a soldier. The soldier asked, "Did you see a snow-white magical beast or a bulging person in their arms?" "I didn't see it." Jianchen's expression didn't change as he calmly replied, "You can go. Remember, if you see a bulging person or a white magical beast, Immediately notify the city Lord Mansion. Do you understand? The soldier's face was serious as he stared at Jianqin with a pair of sharp eyes. Understood. If I see this person, I will definitely notify the city Lord Mansion. Jianqin promised. Then the soldier didn't make things difficult for Jianqin and let him go. He went to stop the next passerby. Jianqin passed through 3 streets. Almost every street had a few soldiers searching for something, or they would directly stop the passers-by and ask the same question over and over again. Jianqin casually walked on the main street and soon arrived at the city gate. There were a large number of passers-by and caravans that wanted to enter and leave the city. The traffic was seriously jammed. Jianqin climbed to the top floor of a nearby restaurant and gazed into the distance. He saw a large number of armored soldiers guarding the entrance to the city. There were several large vats filled with clean water on the ground. The soldiers would rudely wipe the faces of anyone who wanted to enter or leave the city with a wet towel. Even a few well-dressed rich people could not avoid being messed around with, causing countless people to complain. Chapter 366. In order to prevent people from noticing him, Jianqin did not stay in the restaurant for too long. After leaving the restaurant, Jianqin went to the market to buy a Class 2 magical beast mount. He disguised himself as a mercenary and began to make his way to the other 3 city gates to check on the situation there. Along the way, Jianqin was stopped countless times by the soldiers on the streets. They asked him the same question without getting tired of it. However, Jianqin felt fortunate that the soldiers did not require everyone to wash their faces. Otherwise, Jianqin's disguise would not have been able to fool them. Although his disguise was flawless to the point where no one could see through it, once he washed it with clean water, the disguise would be easily erased. Jianqin wandered around the city for an entire day. He wanted to see if he could find a good way to leave the city without being noticed by the 8 Heaven Saint Masters. Although he could hide himself very well in the city, it was not a long-term plan. Within the Huangpu merchant house in the center of the Great Hall, an old man in his 70s sat at the head of the table. Below him, on both sides, sat 20 people of varying ages, all of them brimming with vitality, their eyes flashing with shrewdness. These people were the pillars of the Huangpu merchant house, managing all of their businesses. The old man sitting at the head of the table was none other than the current generation patriarch of the Huangpu clan. He looked around and slowly said, "I don't know what happened in the city today, but the city lord actually dispatched hundreds of thousands of garrison troops to search the entire city for an unknown person. Just now, I received a notice from the city lord's mansion that all the clans in Bright Sun City must fully cooperate with the city lord's mansion's operation. Once we see a person holding a snow-white magic beast or a bulging person, we must stop him and inform the city lord's mansion." Speaking up to here, the old man paused for a moment. Then he looked at the middle-aged man below and said, "Linda, you are in charge of managing the family's guards. You will immediately arrange for half of the guards to go to the areas controlled by our Huangpu clan to assist the city lord's mansion in searching for the fugitive. The other half will search the entire Huangpu clan from inside out. This is to prevent the fugitive from hiding in our Huangpu clan. Do not miss a single spot, understand?" "Yes, Patriarch." Linda, who was in charge of the Huangpu clan's guards, cupped his hands and replied. After a slight hesitation, he asked, "Patriarch, isn't it just searching for a single person? Is there a need to make such a big fuss?" "That's right, Patriarch. I also feel very puzzled. Why would the city lord's mansion suddenly issue such an order? They actually mobilized hundreds of thousands of garrison troops to search for a single person. Isn't this making a big fuss out of nothing?" The Huangpu clan's people sitting below spoke one after another. Each and every one of them was puzzled. The old patriarch, who was sitting at the head of the table, sighed and said, "This matter is indeed a little sudden, but it is much more serious than you can imagine. If the city lord's manor discovers that the person they are searching for is not found in any of the clans, or if the clans directly cover up for that person and hide the news, then the consequences will be very serious. They will directly make that clan disappear from Bright Sun City. Hearing this, the faces of the people sitting below changed greatly, becoming very dignified. Obviously, they were frightened by the consequences. All right, let's adjourn. Linda, you must personally supervise this matter. There must not be the slightest accident. Otherwise, the consequences are not something our Huang Pu family can bear. The Huang Pu family patriarch said to Linda with a serious expression. Patriarch, you can rest assured that Linda will personally supervise and carefully search. While the Huang Pu clan was conducting a large-scale search of their own clan, all the clans and forces in Bright Sun City were doing the same thing. The atmosphere of the entire Bright Sun City had become tense due to the sudden large-scale operation of the city lord's estate. Within the Huangpu clan, groups of guards were searching the entire manor. Whether it was the weeds, the firewood shed, or some of the servants' houses, they were all within the scope of their search. They did not miss a single place. Even the residents of some of the clan's upper echelons were not spared. At this time, the searching guards came to a house that had been empty for a long time and began to search room by room. Everyone, be careful. Don't miss a single place, especially the cabinet, the roof beam, and under the bed. Don't miss a single place. The several guard captains in charge of the command were constantly shouting. Suddenly, the door of the room Jianqin was hiding in was opened. Several guards filed in and began to carefully search the room. The white tiger that was hiding under the bed seemed to have sensed the approaching danger. Its small body slowly curled up in a corner. A pair of bright eyes shone under the pitch-black bed, and a pair of small ears stood up high. At this time, the bedsheet that had fallen to the ground was suddenly lifted up, revealing a person's face. A guard was lying on the ground, looking at the situation under the bed. The space under the bed was very spacious. Even though the white tiger was trying its best to curl up in a corner, it was still very eye-catching. It was discovered by the guard at a glance. "Captain, there's a discovery here," the guard immediately said loudly. Hearing this, a guard captain quickly walked in and asked with a serious face, "What's the situation?" "Captain, look under the bed." The guard climbed up from the ground and said to the captain. The captain immediately laid on the ground to look under the bed. With this look, he immediately discovered the white tiger hiding under the bed. "Quick, inform Manager Linda." The captain's face immediately changed as he shouted to a guard. Soon Linda, who was in charge of all the guards in the Huang Pu clan, arrived. When he saw the white tiger, his face also changed and immediately became serious. He shouted, "Everyone be alert. Immediately seal off this area. If you discover any suspicious or unidentified person, immediately arrest them." Yes, many guards responded in unison with a serious expression. Then, Linda carried the white tiger out from under the bed and quickly walked towards the patriarch's room. The white tiger seemed to disagree with Linda. Its small mouth that didn't have any teeth kept biting on Linda's arm, making whimpering sounds. Although the white tiger's talent was extraordinary, it was a winged tiger that only existed in ancient times. After all, it was just born not long ago. Even its eyes only opened a few days ago. Right now, it was as weak as a baby. Even walking was difficult for it. It didn't have the slightest ability to protect itself. In the conference hall, all the upper echelons of the Huang Pu clan were gathered here. Each of them had a serious expression as they stared at the white tiger in the patriarch's hand. "Have you found out who raised this tiger cub?" The patriarch of the Huang Pu clan sat at the head of the table and asked everyone with a serious expression. The 20 upper echelons below shook their heads. Linda opened his mouth and said, "Patriarch, I've already sent people to investigate. In our Huang Pu clan, no one raised this tiger cub. Moreover, no one has ever seen this tiger cub. If that's the case, then this tiger cub is probably the magical beast that the City Lord's mansion is looking for. Linda, immediately go and inform the City Lord's mansion." The patriarch of the Huang Pu clan said with a serious expression. The city lord's mansion quickly received the news. The city lord of Bright Moon City didn't dare to be negligent. He immediately invited an old man out and reported the Huang Pu clan's report to him without missing a single word. This old man was none other than the third elder of the Sher clan. He had been waiting in the city lord's mansion all this time. Hearing the city lord's report, the third elder revealed a faint smile on his face and said, Snow White, less than 1/2 meter long, with a pair of wings on its back. It seems that this tiger cub was left behind by Jianqin. Hee Jianqin, you may have a good plan, but I have a ladder. I've already laid down an inescapable net in Bright Moon City. Let's see where you can escape this time. After an entire day, Jianqin had already made his way through all 4 gates of Bright Moon City. The situation was just as he'd expected. All 4 gates were tightly guarded, and anyone who wanted to leave the city had to wash their faces with water at the gates, regardless of their identity. This was tantamount to cutting off any thoughts of Jianqin using his ability to disguise himself and sneak out of the city. Portraits of Jianqin's original appearance had already been plastered all over Bright Moon City. As long as Jianqin appeared in his original appearance, he was guaranteed to be immediately recognized. Jianqin booked a room in an inn and left the second-rank magical beast in the care of a waiter. He then waited until late at night before silently slipping out of the inn's window. Along the way, he used the surrounding buildings as cover to leap through the darkness, quickly arriving at the courtyard of the Huangpu merchant house. He then transformed into a black blur and silently flipped over the city walls, carefully making his way to the room where the white tiger was kept. Jianqin silently entered the room and immediately went under the bed. He held a luminous pearl in his hand that emitted a gentle light, illuminating the area under the bed. However, there was nothing under the bed. The white tiger was nowhere to be found. Jianqin's expression abruptly changed. He immediately used the weak light of the luminous pearl to observe the surroundings. Sure enough, he discovered that there were many footprints in the dusty room. Jianqin's heart immediately sank, and his expression became extremely unsightly. He knew in his heart that the white tiger had already been taken away. Jianqin hid in the dark room, tightly clenching his fists and frowning in thought. He then left the room, transforming into a black blur as he shot towards the center of the manor. Chapter 367. Jianqin advanced cautiously in the manor and began to approach the center of the manor. Although Jianqin knew in his heart that it was very likely that he had been exposed, he still had to take back the white tiger. This was because this was the child that Rumguinness had entrusted to him. He absolutely could not allow anything to happen to the white tiger in his hands. Tonight the manor was especially quiet, and at the same time it was also very dark. Even the guards patrolling at night were very rare. Jianqin wore a black tight suit and used the cover of the night to silently move like a ghost towards the large attic in the center of the manor. He had to find out the whereabouts of the white tiger from the owner of this manor. Just as Jianqin approached the attic in the center, suddenly a familiar cry faintly entered his ears. This was the woo-woo cry of the white tiger. Hearing the cry of the white tiger, Jianqin's face was overjoyed. He originally thought that it would take a lot of effort to find the white tiger's trace, but he didn't expect that he would find it so easily. At this moment, the attic suddenly became brightly lit. A large amount of lighting equipment and candles illuminated the large attic in red. Jianqin, you really came. Let's see where you can escape to this time. An old voice came from the attic. Just as the voice fell, a large group of people walked out from inside. The person leading the group was an old man wearing a white robe. He had white hair and a youthful complexion with a kind face. It was the third elder of the Sher family. Behind him was a group of high-ranking members of the Huang Pu family. The white tiger was in the arms of the head of the Huang Pu family. Whoa. Upon seeing Jianqin, the white tiger in the arms of the Huang Pu family immediately became happy. A pair of bright eyes without any impurities stared closely at Jianchen. Its mouth let out a hurried cry, and a pair of short limbs struggled in the arms of the Huang Pu family, as if it was very unwilling to be in the arms of the Huang Pu family. Seeing that he had been discovered, Jianchen no longer continued to hide and calmly walked out from the dark corner. The Huang Pu family sized up Jianchen. Currently, Jianchen's appearance was still that of a 30-year-old youth and was not his original appearance. Could this person be the person that the city lord and this respected lord are looking for? The Huang Pu family's head secretly guessed. Jianchen calmly looked at the Huang Pu family's head and said, "Return the white tiger to me." The Huang Pu family's head did not pay attention to Jianchen. Instead, he turned to look at the third elder of the Shi family. Although he was the head of the family, he clearly knew that he had to listen to the orders of this old man in front of him. The third elder of the Shi family calmly looked at Jianchen and said, "Jianchen, my tolerance for you has reached its limit. You better obediently return the item to our two families. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Although you are very fast, you obviously won't be able to last long. You won't be able to escape." Jianchen looked at the third elder of the Shi family and chuckled. "I'm afraid that if I return the king armament to you, you will use it against me in the next moment. I'm not that stupid. If you want the king armament back, do it yourself. You're courting death." The third elder of the Shi family's face was gloomy. He had already lost the patience to persuade Jianchen. A green light flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Jianchen. He directly sent a palm strike filled with saint force towards Jianchen's chest. Although Jianchen's speed was very fast, he was still only an Earth Saint Master. The third elder of the Shi family did not even bother to take out his own saint weapon. The moment the third elder of the Shi family made his move, Jianchen also made his move. He used the Heaven's Fortune art and the illusory flash at the same time. His body left behind an afterimage as if he had teleported and appeared in the hands of the patriarch of the Huang family. He took the little white tiger back in one move and then stomped his feet on the ground, escaping with lightning speed. A surge of energy came from behind. The third elder of the Shi family once again sent a palm strike towards Jianchen's back with the force of 1,000 caddies. Uft! Jianchen spat out a mouthful of blood and disappeared into the night with his injured body. The third elder of the Shi family let out a long howl to the sky. In the silent night, his howl was like a clap of thunder that spread through the entire city. He then immediately rose into the air and chased after Jianchen with a green light flashing around his body. The other 7 Heaven Saint Masters guarding the surroundings of Bright Sun City heard the howl of the third elder of the Shi family and were all pleasantly surprised. They then rose into the air one after another, and just like that, they hovered in the air and watched everything that happened below, preparing to ambush Jianchen at any time. As a result, no matter where Jianchen fled in, as long as he left the city, he would be stopped by a Heaven Saint Master. A moment later, the sound of something tearing through the air could be heard from afar. The eyes of the Kai family's eldest brother slightly narrowed as he stared ahead with a sharp gaze. All he saw was a black shadow rapidly approaching him at an unbelievable speed. The fourth elder of the Kai family immediately let out a long howl and used a secret signal to tell the others to start pulling in the net. He then took out his saint weapon, and with a thought, the fire element in the surroundings began to rapidly gather around his saint weapon. With a wave of his hand, he shot out a sword chi that was over 20 meters long. It was so hot that it seemed to be able to burn the air as it shot towards the fleeing black shadow below. Jianchen, who was fleeing with all his might towards the city gates, sensed the sword chi shooting towards him from the sky. His expression immediately changed. He then stomped his feet on the ground and leapt up from the street. He jumped onto the roofs of the buildings on both sides of the street and ran out of the city without slowing down at all. Boom! The huge fiery red sword chi struck the street below. Following a violent explosion, the exploding flames lit up the sky. Violent energy ripples wreaked havoc in the surroundings, and the surrounding buildings were instantly destroyed as if they were tofu. The entire street was in a mess, and at the place where the sword chi had struck, there was a huge crater with a diameter of 10 meters and a depth of over 20 meters. Genshin's expression became extremely solemn. From this attack, he could tell that the person who had shot out the sword chi was actually much stronger than the ancestor of the Heian clan. The Kai family's eldest son, who was hovering in the air, was surrounded by flames. He was like a meteor that streaked across the sky and landed in front of Genshin. He then opened his left hand, and the temperature in front of him rapidly rose at an unbelievable rate. Very soon, the space in front of him became a sea of fire. The roaring flames seemed to be able to burn the air. Just by spreading through the air, the residual heat was enough to melt steel. Heaven Saint Masters were already able to control the energy of the world. The Kai family's 4 elders were able to control the fire element in the surroundings, forming a sea of fire that was over 500 meters long and 100 meters tall in front of him. Genshin growled. Surging saint force erupted from his body, forming a barrier of energy around him. At the same time, he used the illusory flash and the Heaven's Fortune art at the same time. He charged towards the sea of fire at an extremely high speed. That was the only way out of the city he had to pass. At this moment, 3 more fiery red lights lit up in the distance. They were like 3 meteors that left 3 long trails in the night sky. The 3 Heaven Saint Masters closest to the area were already rushing over. At this moment, Genshin had already charged into the sea of fire. The sea of fire was over 100 meters tall, forming a barrier in front of him. There was no place for him to use as a stepping stone. Genshin could not leap over, so he could only choose to charge through. The temperature in the sea of fire was extremely high. As soon as Genshin entered, his barrier of saint force immediately shattered. His clothes began to rapidly burn, and even his head became bald. His eyebrows, eyelashes, and everything else were all burned away. Genshin endured the heat that seemed to be even more intense than lava and tried his best to charge out of the sea of fire at full speed. Boom! At this moment, an earth-shattering sound suddenly rang out. An entire sea of fire suddenly exploded. Flames shot out in all directions, illuminating the entire pitch-black sky red. Countless people in the entire city who had fallen into a deep sleep were awakened one after another. Genshin was extremely heavily injured in the sea of fire. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood before charging out of the sea of fire with great difficulty. He fled from the city. The eldest brother of the Kai family panted heavily as he hovered in the air. His face was pale as he sighed. I almost died from exhaustion after using such a large-scale wildfire spell. Although I did manage to keep you here, I still managed to heavily injure you. I believe you won't be able to get far with your injuries. At this moment, the other 3 fiery red lights arrived beside the eldest brother of the Kai family. They were the other 3 brothers of the Kai family. One of them asked in a rather urgent tone, "Brother, where is he?" He fled in that direction. Let's go after him. The 4 brothers of the Kai family immediately chased after him. Before long, a faint azure light suddenly appeared behind them. It overtook the 4 brothers of the Kai family at double their speed, chasing in the direction that Genshin had vanished in. Genshin was currently heavily injured. Although he was moving very quickly, he was unable to reach his peak speed. Over an hour later, Genshin arrived in a forest and finally stopped to rest. He then looked at the white tiger in his arms. Since Genshin had been protecting the white tiger the entire time, the white tiger was not injured at all. Blood dripped from the corner of Genshin's mouth as his breathing became rather ragged. He had already used up 2/3 of his saint force. It was very difficult for him to escape the pursuit of the 8 Heaven Saint Masters. At this moment, a faint green light flashed in the distant sky. The 3rd elder of the Sure family with his wind-attributed saint force had already chased after Genshin. Genshin sighed inside. It seemed that he would not be able to escape today. He reached out his hand and gently stroked the white tiger in his arms. He felt extremely ashamed. He had promised Rum Guinness that he would take good care of her child. But now that he was in such a situation, he no longer had the ability to take care of her child. Jianchen found a large tree and punched a large hole in the base of the tree. After comforting the white tiger, he placed the white tiger into the hole in the tree and used some branches to block the entrance. He then turned around and immediately left, fleeing into the distance. Jianchen continued to flee. He finally stopped when he was 100 kilometers away from the white tiger. He sat on the ground and gasped for breath, waiting for the Heaven Saint Masters to arrive. Now he had already given up on escaping. The third elder of the Shi family followed closely behind him. He was unable to shake off the third elder, who was heavily injured in the sea of flames. Chapter 368. Not long after, a faint green light appeared on the horizon and quickly approached Jianchen. In just a few breaths of time, it arrived above Jianchen. Although the world was currently shrouded in darkness, it did not affect experts like Heaven Saint Masters very much. Jianchen, keep running. Why aren't you running anymore? The third elder of the Shi family hovered 50 meters above the ground as he coldly stared at Jianchen. He was no longer as amiable and approachable as before. Jianchen's torment over the past few days had caused the mild-tempered third elder to lose his patience. Jianchen sat cross-legged on the ground with a Class 5 monster core in his hand. He began to absorb the energy within to recover. Even if he couldn't escape, he wouldn't just sit there and wait for death. Even if he died, he would make them pay a price. The third elder hovered in the air as he looked at Jianchen. He had no intention of taking action. This was no longer a matter of the Shi family. Before the Jedi family arrived, he didn't want to deal with Jianchen. Even if he wanted to deal with Jianchen, he would have to wait until the Jedi family was present. This would affect the Jedi family's reputation and the relationship between the two families in the future. An hour later, the 2 Heaven Saint Masters from the Jedi clan and the 4 Heaven Saint Masters from the Kai family arrived. The 8 of them formed a tight encirclement around Jianchen, preventing him from escaping again. Jianchen, hand over the cloud-severing sword and we'll leave your corpse intact. One of the elders of the Jedi family shouted. Quickly hand over the seal of the treasure mountain, or we'll make you wish you were dead. The 4th elder of the Shi family also shouted. Hearing the words of the 2, Jianchen coldly snorted and immediately stood up. He threw the Class 5 monster core in his hand towards the 4th elder and shouted, If you want the ruler armament back, come and get it. You're all Heaven Saint Masters, but you can't even catch up to an Earth Saint Master. If it weren't for my Saint Force being weaker than yours, you wouldn't have been able to catch up to me. You bunch of trash. The 8 Heaven Saint Masters were angered by Jianchen's words. With their strength, they couldn't even catch up to an Earth Saint Master. This was an extremely embarrassing matter for them. Bastard brat, let this 4th elder see what you're capable of. The 4th elder of the Shi family cursed as he rushed towards Jianchen. A large yellow sword appeared in his hand and surged with Saint force as it pierced towards Jianchen. Jianchen's eyes flashed. At this moment, his consciousness was raised to its peak and he used all his strength to control the sword. With a slight sound, the light-wind sword in his hand turned into a faint silver light as it pierced towards the 4th elder's throat at an unimaginable speed. The light-wind sword's speed seemed to have reached the speed of light. As it flew through the air, the sword became a blur that couldn't be seen clearly. In the darkness of the night, it was even harder to spot. The 4th elder of the Shi family was caught off guard and the light-wind sword pierced through his throat, creating a fist-sized hole. After the light-wind sword pierced through the 4th elder's throat, it didn't slow down in the slightest as it continued to fly towards the 3rd elder, who was 50 meters in the air. The 3rd elder's eyes flashed with a bright light as Saint Force surged out from his body and formed a protective barrier around him. When the light-winged sword came into contact with the barrier, it was as if it had sunk into a quagmire and its speed was greatly hindered. At the same time, a scimitar appeared in the third elder's hand. With a shout, the scimitar pierced through the air, causing the space around it to distort and distort. Finally, the scimitar struck the light-winged sword with a thunderous force. Ding! Following a crisp sound, the light-winged sword fell to the ground after being struck by the third elder's scimitar. There was even a small crack on the sword's body. Pooh! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Genshin's mouth. He was already connected to his saint weapon and was using the divine sword manipulation technique to control it. His consciousness had already become one with the light-winged sword. The third elder's attack had not only damaged Genshin's saint weapon a little, but it had also damaged his mental state. His mind was heavily injured as well. He felt like his head was about to explode. A fist-sized hole appeared in the Sher family's fourth brother's throat. But like the ancestor of the Black Cloud clan, he didn't die. Instead, he came to the side of the third elder and looked down at Genshin. The distance between him and Genshin was simply too close, and he didn't have much time to defend himself, so he didn't even have time to react before being injured by the light-wind sword. If he only had the strength of an Earth Saint Master, he would have already died. Quick, immediately refine it. Third elder immediately took out a pill. He didn't feed it into fourth elder's mouth. Instead, he directly threw it into fourth elder's throat through the hole in his neck. Genshin endured the pain in his head as he recalled the light-wind sword. His heart ached as he looked at the crack on the light-wind sword. The power of the third elder's attack was just too great. Even Genshin's light-wind sword was unable to withstand it. Suddenly, a fiery red light appeared above Genshin's head, illuminating the dark sky red. The Kai family's eldest brother condensed the fire elemental energy in the air into a long sword and shot it towards Genshin. The violent energy contained within the sword caused Genshin's heart to palpitate. Not daring to hesitate, Genshin immediately rolled to the side to dodge the attack. Following a loud explosion, the fiery red energy sword struck the spot where Genshin had just been standing. The earth shook and the earth trembled as a 30-meter wide crater appeared in the ground. Just as Genshin stood up, a strong wind blew from behind him. One of the elders of the Jetta family stabbed his sword towards Genshin. Genshin immediately turned around and circulated his heaven-stealing fortune, increasing his battle strength by 3 times. The light wind sword's faint purple and green sword chi collided with the elder's saint weapon. Another violent explosion rang out as Genshin spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flew backwards like a broken kite. The 8 Heaven Saint Masters present were all much stronger than the Heiyun family's ancestor. Genshin's saint force was almost depleted and he was heavily injured, so there was no way he could withstand their attacks. Cough, cough! Genshin continuously coughed up blood. His face was pale white as he spat out a large amount of his internal organs. After receiving so many attacks, he had already lost the ability to fight. Brat, I'll make you wish you were dead. A hoarse and unpleasant voice rang out from the sky as the Sher family's 4th brother spat out these words with great difficulty. Landing on the ground, he gripped his sword and walked towards Genshin with a gloomy face. Genshin gritted his teeth as he struggled to get up from the ground. He slowly raised his light-wind sword. After receiving the attack from the Jetta family's elder, the cracks on the light-wind sword had deepened. Even if I die, I won't let you have it easy. Even though Genshin was heavily injured, his eyes were still as sharp as ever. A faint purple and green sword chi once again appeared on the light-wind sword. The purple and green sword chi appeared on each side of the sword, not interfering with each other. It was as if the well water and the river water did not interfere with each other. The 4th brother of the Sher family had already closed in on Genshin. The huge sword in his hand swept towards Jian Chen's head with a powerful ripple of energy, attempting to behead Jian Chen. A crazed look appeared in Jian Chen's eyes as he gripped the hilt of the light wind sword tightly. Suddenly, the two sword qis began to vibrate as they began to flicker. Then, the two sword qis that had never interfered with each other before suddenly fused into one. Just as the two sword qi merged, a dazzling light burst out from the light wind sword. The light was no longer pure purple and green, but a combination of purple and green. Within the purple, there was a hint of green, and within the green, there was a hint of purple. The two sword qi had completely merged into one. Suddenly, an unimaginably powerful sword qi appeared and filled the entire area. In an instant, the entire area seemed to have been transformed into a world of swords. Even the air seemed to have been transformed into an incomparably sharp sword qi. This sword qi was unimaginably powerful. It carried with it the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. It was so powerful that even the heavens trembled. It was as if it could easily tear apart the heavens and earth. Around the light wind sword, there were even small cracks in the air. This sudden turn of events caused the 8 Heaven Saint Masters to be completely stunned. Their eyes were wide open as they stared at the light wind sword in Jian Chen's hand. Their faces were filled with disbelief because the strength of the sword qi was enough to make them feel fear. Just what kind of power is this? The Kai family's eldest brother's face was filled with shock as he spoke with a trembling voice. Suddenly, a gentle breeze blew past the 8 Heaven Saint Masters, causing their clothes to be reduced to dust. Their bodies were covered with countless sword wounds. Even their long hair was reduced to a fine powder that was hard to distinguish with the naked eye. The blood that flowed out from their bodies dyed the 8 Heaven Saint Masters red. The air in this area was no longer pure air. Instead, it was filled with powerful sword qi. When the breeze blew past them, it was equivalent to countless sword qi attacking their bodies. Even the air they breathed in was filled with incomparably sharp sword qi, capable of turning their internal organs to dust in an instant. The fusion of the sword qi had forcefully transformed the area into a world of swords. This was a domain filled with sword qi. The 8 Heaven Saint Masters were all overwhelmed with shock. Immediately, a powerful saint force erupted from their bodies, forming a powerful barrier around them. They did their best to protect themselves from the sword qi outside. Quick, quick, kill him. The Sher family's 3rd elder, who was already covered in blood, could not hide the fear in his voice. Chapter 369. Quickly kill him. The bloodied 3rd elder couldn't hide the fear in his voice as he cried out in a trembling voice. The words of the 3rd elder immediately woke everyone up. As if they had just woken up from a dream, they no longer held back and launched powerful attacks at Jian Chen. As for the Sher family's 4th brother, who was closest to Jian Chen, a fierce light flashed through his eyes. Just as he was about to swing his saint weapon at Jian Chen again, his expression abruptly changed. This was because, at this moment, he was shocked to find that he could not move his body at all. It was as if his body was being compressed by the surrounding space, tightly binding him to the spot. No matter how much strength he used, he could not break free from this invisible binding. Jian Chen's eyes were wide open as he stared at the 8 Heaven Saint Masters with a crazed expression. He didn't care about the price he had to pay. Brandishing the light wind sword with his right hand, a dazzling light flashed as the light wind sword slashed at the 4th brother's saint weapon. Ding! The 4th brother's saint weapon was like tofu as it was easily cut in two by the light wind sword. The 4th brother let out a muffled groan as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face had already turned pale white. After breaking the 4th brother's saint weapon, Jian Chen didn't have time to be shocked by the might of the azure and violet sword qi. With a wave of his arm, the light wind sword pierced through the 4th brother's chest in front of his shocked eyes. Ah! 4th produced a chilling cry. His voice was filled with pain. The fused azulite sword qi was like an extremely powerful bomb when they entered his body. Countless strands of sharp sword chi shot out from various parts of his body. In a single moment, his body was reduced to a bloody pulp. Even his bones were reduced to dust. At this time, the attacks of the other Heaven Saint Masters had also arrived. Several powerful sword chi shot down from the sky, aiming straight for Jianqin. Jianqin suddenly turned around. The fused azulite sword chi shot through the air with a dazzling light, meeting the incoming strands of sword chi fearlessly. Wherever the light wind sword passed, it would leave behind a black crack in the air. When the sword chi from the 7 Heaven Saint Masters collided with the sword chi, there wasn't a loud explosion as expected. The 7 sword chi directly dissipated into nothingness. Fourth brother. Seeing his fourth brother turn into a pile of flesh, the third elder's face was filled with grief and indignation. His voice was filled with deep sorrow. Jianqin's mouth continued to spit out blood as well as all the pores on his body. His right arm, which was holding the light wind sword, began to crack as blood flowed out from the wounds. The power of the merged sword chi was truly shocking, but with Jianqin's current strength, he was unable to control it. Furthermore, the sword chi had been forcefully merged by Jianqin, causing him to suffer a severe backlash. If this continued, even if he didn't die at the hands of the Heaven Saint Masters, he would still die from the backlash. The longer Jianqin was merged with the sword chi, the more severe the backlash became. The immense pain and torment caused Jianqin to uncontrollably release a crazed roar. He immediately leapt into the air, and without even looking at who he was, he directly shot towards the nearest Heaven Saint Master. The merged sword chi emitted a dazzling light as it pointed towards the Heaven Saint Master. Wherever the light wind sword pointed, the space there quickly froze. The person who was attacked by Jianqin was the Kai clan's eldest brother. Seeing Jianqin rush towards him, the eldest brother's expression changed. Just as he was about to quickly retreat, he was shocked to find that his body had been locked in place by an invisible force. Even the space around him seemed to have solidified, causing his body to be firmly locked in place, unable to move at all. The Kai clan's eldest brother's face was filled with shock as his eyes were filled with fear. He immediately released a large amount of saint force from his body in an attempt to break free from the bindings of the space around him. But it was all in vain. The light wind sword mercilessly pierced through the Kai clan's eldest brother's chest as the merged sword chi burst out from his body. In an instant, his entire body was turned into minced meat. Even his bones were turned to dust. The Kai clan's eldest brother didn't even have the time to scream before his body and soul was completely destroyed. PFFF. After killing the Kai clan's eldest brother, Jianqin couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The powerful backlash had exceeded the limits of what Jianqin could endure. His 7 orifices were all covered in dark red blood. Adding on his pale face, he looked extremely terrifying, as if he was an evil spirit. Big brother! Big brother! Big brother! The death of the Kai clan's eldest brother caused the eyes of the other 3 brothers to become bloodshot. Damn it, just what kind of power is this? How could it be so strong? We need to kill him immediately, otherwise we'll all be in danger. One of the Deity clan's elders said with a serious expression. We can't delay any longer. Quick, let's use our battle skills at the same time. The Shur clan's 3rd elder also had a serious expression. Now that 2 of their Heaven Saint Masters had died, the outcome of the battle had far exceeded their expectations. Who would have thought that an Earth Saint Master would be able to explode with such terrifying battle prowess? The 2 elders of the Deity clan glanced at each other and didn't hesitate to use their Heaven-tier battle skills. At the same time, the Shur clan's 3rd elder also moved. Jianqin, pay with your life for my big brothers. The enraged Kai clan's 3 brothers went berserk and used their Earth-tier battle skills at the same time. The power of an Earth-tier battle skill used by a Heaven Saint Master was not inferior to Ming Dong's Heaven-tier battle skill. With the 3 Earth-tier battle skills used together, the pressure from the combined attack pressed down on Genshin's body, causing the heavily injured Genshin to spit out a mouthful of blood mixed with bits of his internal organs. A huge amount of power surged forth. The Kai clan's 3 brothers' saint weapons lit up the sky as they shot towards Genshin with the force of a thunderbolt. Ah! Genshin roared towards the sky as he used all his strength to control his right arm. He swung the light wind sword at the 3 incoming attacks. The fused azure and violet sword Qi nullified the Kai brothers' Earth-tier battle skill, and the saint weapons in their hands were also cut in half. With their saint weapons destroyed, the 3 of them suffered unimaginable injuries, and they all spat out a mist of blood. The purple and green light on Genshin's light wind sword slowly disappeared. He had reached his limit and could no longer maintain the fusion of the purple and green sword Qi. The backlash had caused him to suffer an unimaginable amount of damage. Suddenly, the wind and clouds surged in the sky. A thick layer of dark clouds hung low in the sky. Streaks of lightning constantly flashed in the dark clouds. The whole world was shrouded by an invisible aura. The atmosphere became very oppressive. Following that, an unimaginable amount of pressure descended from the heavens and enveloped Genshin. Genshin's bones began to crackle as they were crushed by the pressure. Genshin's face paled as he looked up at the sky. The 2 elders of the Jetta family and the 3rd elder of the Sher family were protected by a thick layer of saint force as they hovered high in the air. The 3 Heaven Saint Masters were using their Heaven-tier battle skills at the same time. The sheer power of their Heaven-tier battle skills was enough to shake the heavens and earth. Genshin's entire body was in intense pain as he forced himself to stand there with a victorious smile on his face. He had already dragged 2 Heaven Saint Masters to the grave with him, as well as the 3 brothers of the Kai family whose saint weapons were destroyed. Even if he died, it would be worth it to obtain such a glorious battle skill. Very soon, the 3 Heaven Saint Masters finished charging up their Heaven-tier battle skills. 3 dazzling streaks of light shot toward Genshin with lightning-like speed, causing the space around them to tremble. The 3 Heaven Saint Masters were very cautious and did not use their saint weapons to clash with Genshin. Genshin subconsciously used the cracked light wind sword to block in front of him. With a loud explosion, the 3 Heaven Saint Masters' Heaven-tier battle skills landed on Genshin's body at almost the same time. Genshin's light wind sword was unable to resist at all as it shattered into pieces and fell to the ground. Then it returned to the energy of the heavens and earth and slowly disappeared. Genshin's body flew backwards like a kite with a short string. He flew for more than 50 meters before crashing to the ground and rolling for another 20 meters before finally coming to a stop. There was a huge hole in his chest and his organs had already disappeared. His entire body was a mess of blood and flesh. There was not an inch of undamaged skin to be found. With a flash of green light, the 3rd elder of the Sher clan quickly arrived in front of Genshin. He did not plan on letting Genshin go so easily. The scimitar in his hand pierced through Genshin's forehead and through Genshin's head. The light in Genshin's eyes quickly dimmed as his gaze became lifeless. Finally, it became empty as he slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, Genshin's mind entered a state of chaos. His soul seemed to be on the verge of disappearing from the heavens and earth. His perception of the outside world became hazy and extremely blurry. In the final moment before his soul disappeared, Genshin could not help but recall the past. His mother, Bai Yuntian, father, Changyangba, elder brother, Changyang Hu, second sister, Changyang Mingyue, his best partner in the Kargath Academy, Tai Ta, and his best brothers Mingdong and Qin Shao. Is this the feeling of death? Mother, I'm sorry. Your son will not be able to be filial to you in the future. Big brother, second sister, thank you for taking care of me in the past. If there is a next life, I, Jianchen, will definitely repay you. Captain Kendall, I'm sorry I won't be able to fulfill your final wish. Mingdong, Qin Shao, my good brothers, farewell. I won't be able to see you again in the future. Jianchen's mind constantly flashed with the past as his consciousness became more and more chaotic. He could feel that his soul was quickly disappearing. Chapter 370. The two elders of the Jetta clan and the third elder of the Shi clan gathered in front of Jianchen. Although they had succeeded in killing Jianchen, the three of them did not have a good expression on their faces. This was because the battle had been too frightening. They did not know where Jianchen had gotten his strength from. First, he had easily killed the fourth elder of the Shi clan. Then, he had easily killed the first elder of the Kai clan. In the end, even the remaining three brothers of the Kai clan had their saint weapons destroyed. Even a sixth cycle heaven saint master would not be able to match up to such a battle prowess. The three of them who had survived felt their hearts skip a beat. They found it hard to believe that their opponent was an Earth Saint Master after all. Just where did Jianchen's final burst of strength come from? How could it be so strong? One of the elders of the Jetta clan said with a serious expression. After a moment of silence, the third elder of the Shi clan said in a low voice, "This Jianchen's body is very strange. He probably cultivates some kind of secret technique that we do not know about. It seems that this Jianchen is not as simple as he seems. I hope that he does not have a powerful background." One of the elders of the Jetta clan said with a worried expression, "That should not have happened. If Jianchen really did have a powerful background, someone would have come to our rescue while we were chasing him. I think that Jianchen must have had some kind of fortuitous encounter that allowed him to possess such an inconceivable power." The third elder of the Shi clan said, "That is true. Now that we have killed him, there is no point in discussing this. Let us take back the ruler weapons that belong to our clan. Of course, if we find anything good in Jianchen's space ring, such as the secret technique that gave him such a powerful battle prowess, or the battle skill that gave him the speed of the world, I suggest that we share it." One of the elders of the Jetta clan said. The third elder of the Shi family agreed without any hesitation. "Of course, that's not a problem. Let's take off Jianchen's space ring right now and take back our things." Without the Jetta family's permission, the third elder did not want to take Jianchen's interspatial ring because it contained the Jetta family's king weapon. After the two elders of the Jetta family agreed, the third elder stepped forward and removed the interspatial ring from Jianchen's finger. While guarding against the two elders of the Jetta family, he carefully inspected the contents of the interspatial ring. However, in the next moment, the third elder's expression changed greatly as he cried out in alarm, "Not good. The ruler armament is not in the interspatial ring." What? The faces of the two elders from the Jetta family changed. "Let me see." One of the elders from the Jetta family immediately snatched the space ring from the hands of the third elder of the Shi family and impatiently checked the contents. Immediately his face turned ugly. "That bastard!" The elder of the Jetta family threw the space ring on the ground, his face ashen. The third elder of the Shi family's face turned ugly as he angrily said, "Jianchen is too treacherous. He actually hid the ruler armament. Now it's going to be hard to find. This is going to be troublesome. How are we going to find the ruler armament? If it's in the interspatial ring, even if we use our secret technique, we can only sense it within a 10-meter radius. Any further, and we won't be able to sense it. Are we going to have to ask the old ancestor to expend his yuan qi to use a secret technique to locate the ruler armament?" The two elders of the Jetta family were livid as they gritted their teeth, hating Jianchen to the extreme. The third elder let out a long sigh as he slowly calmed himself down and said, "When I was in Mercenary City, I used a secret technique to sense that the seal of the treasure mountain was still on Jianchen's body. It seems that he must have hidden it after leaving Mercenary City. To find a ring that doesn't emit any energy fluctuations in such a large area is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It seems that we can only report this matter to the family and have them send people to follow Jinshin's escape route. If we really can't find it, then we can only ask the old ancestor to expend his Yuan Qi to summon the ruler armament back. The elder of the Jetta family said, "That's the only way." The three of them discussed for a while before the two elders of the Jetta family quickly left. They had to report back to the family as soon as possible. After they left, the third elder also swept up the three Kai clan brothers who had suffered heavy injuries due to the destruction of their saint weapons and the two corpses and left. Jianshin's body gradually turned cold as he lay on the ground. His life force was quickly draining away, and even his powerful soul was quickly dissipating. He had never suffered such severe injuries before. Even his head had been pierced through by the third elder's blade. If it had been anyone else, they would have died long ago. The world was dark and the surroundings were very quiet. Only the mess was left behind, as if it was a testament to the tragedy of the battle. At this moment, two rays of light, one purple and one green, floated out from Jianshin's body. The sword spirits that had been entrenched in Jianshin's body all this time actually left Jianshin's body on their own accord. In the middle of the sword spirits was a stone the size of a pinky finger, surrounded by the sword spirits. It emitted a faint five-colored light that was very mesmerizing. The five-colored stone that Jianshin had bought in Walrant City had shrunk to the size of a pinky finger. The sword spirits wrapped around the five-colored stone and slowly floated to Jianshin's forehead. Finally, they slowly descended and merged with the five-colored stone into Jianshin's forehead, disappearing without a trace. As the sword spirits entered Jianshin's mind, an inexplicable suction force suddenly appeared and sucked in all of Jianshin's scattered soul energy. Finally, it gathered in Jianshin's mind. With the help of the sword spirits, Jianshin's dissipating soul temporarily stabilized. Afterwards, the sword spirits wrapped around the five-colored stone and slowly moved to Jianshin's space of consciousness. They gradually merged with Jianshin's soul. Chapter 371. The next day, under a large tree in a forest, the tree branches covering that area suddenly began to tremble slightly. Immediately, a small white tiger with a pair of wings on its back crawled out from the tree, whole covered by the tree branches. A pair of bright and pure eyes curiously looked all around as it continuously emitted a woo-woo-woo-woo sound from its mouth. The white tiger's small head looked around and cried out for a long time. In the end, it sniffed the surroundings and left. The direction it left in was the same direction that Jianshin had gone. The white tiger was still very young. Its short limbs were unable to support its body to run on the ground. It could only crawl and roll forward step by step at an extremely slow speed. After an unknown amount of time, Jianshin finally awoke from his muddled state. He opened his eyes with some difficulty. The first thing that entered his eyes was a wooden roof. Although it was a little damaged, it was still very clean. Suddenly, a splitting headache attacked Jianshin's head, causing Jianshin to involuntarily groan in pain. His head was extremely painful, causing his face to instantly become extremely pale without a trace of blood. His facial muscles constantly twitched, and a heavy feeling of dizziness came over him. Jianshin's head tilted to the side, and he fainted. Not long after Jianshin fainted, a creaking sound rang out, and the wooden door of the wooden hut opened. A 20-year-old, tiger-looking fatty walked in from outside. He directly arrived in front of Jianshin and looked at the unconscious Jianshin. He extended his hand to rub his head and muttered, "Strange, I clearly heard a sound just now. Why hasn't he woken up yet? He's already been unconscious for 3 days." Afterwards, the fatty left the wooden hut. The white tiger did not sleep or rest for 3 consecutive days as it continuously crawled and rolled in the same direction. It even fell a few times when it encountered a steep area. However, its tender skin did not cause any harm to it. It was just that its snow-white fur had turned gray and was covered in mud. After 3 days of hard work, It had finally arrived at the place where Jianqin and the 8 Heaven Saint Masters were fighting. The white tiger used its nose to sniff the area in front of it. It immediately let out a hurried woo-woo sound, as if it was very sad, as if it was crying. It then put in even more effort to crawl forward. Very soon, it arrived in front of a ground dyed red with blood. The blood here had already dried up, leaving behind a blood-red mark on the ground. There were even some dried-up pieces of organs left on the ground. The little white tiger continuously let out sorrowful cries. Its small tiger head looked around and finally sniffed the dried blood on the ground. Then it put the pieces of the internal organs into its mouth and ate them one mouthful at a time. Although the innards were already dried up, they still contained a lot of energy. After eating the crushed innards, the little white tiger's fur limbs seemed to become more powerful. It was able to support its body and stand up straight. In the end, a few sharp canine teeth grew out of its mouth at a speed visible to the naked eye. The white tiger swallowed the organs on the ground as it let out a sorrowful woo sound. Not long after, the organs on the ground had been completely devoured by the white tiger. At this time, although the white tiger's body did not change too much, its movements became even more nimble than before. Its 4 limbs were sturdy and powerful, and when it walked, it was no longer as difficult as before. The white tiger opened its mouth and directly bit off a piece of dirt on the ground. A moment later, it spat the dirt out from its mouth. The dirt that it spat out had already returned to its original color. The dried-up blood that had been mixed in with the dirt had already disappeared. For a total of 10 hours, the white tiger constantly gnawed at the dirt on the ground, absorbing the blood within the dirt. Not only did it contain Jianqin's blood, it also contained the blood of a Heaven Saint Master. It contained quite a bit of energy. To the current white tiger, this was a rather good supplement. As it absorbed more blood, the white tiger also became more robust. The teeth that had just grown out of its mouth also became sharper and sharper. After absorbing all of the blood in the dirt, the white tiger strolled around the area in a rather sturdy manner. Its nose constantly sniffed around, and in the end it ran towards a direction as if it was flying. The pair of wings on its back also unfurled, flapping up and down as it ran. Scenes constantly flashed through the unconscious Jianqin's mind. At times he would see a chaotic space, and at other times he would see a strange gas. At times he would see an old man with a head full of white hair and a ruddy complexion. At times he would see a large red cloud drifting through the sky, constantly raining down 10,000 bolts of lightning that could tear space apart. At times he would see 2 divine swords, one purple and one green, happily flying through the air like a pair of lovers, letting out a carefree sword hum. At times he would see an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion controlling the 2 divine swords to fly through the air, constantly chopping off the heads of magical beasts. At times he would see the 2 divine swords combine in the air, bringing with them the power to destroy the world as they battled in the endless void, causing the space to shatter. Finally, Jianqin saw the 2 divine swords shatter into fragments that filled the sky. From within, 2 faint purple and green rays of light flew into the ground of a mountain range, disappearing without a trace after an unknown amount of time. His sleeping consciousness finally slowly awakened. Jianqin slowly opened his eyes. Suddenly, a wave of headache attacked Jianqin's brain again. However, compared to before, the injury this time was much lighter. Therefore, Jianqin endured for a while, and the pain gradually disappeared. Jianqin's gaze was somewhat blank as he looked around. He discovered that he was currently lying in a small wooden house made of wood. He was sleeping on a hard wooden bed, and there were many footprints on the wooden floor. The small wooden house was not big, only about 2 zhang in length and width. The furnishings inside were also very simple. "Where is this?" Jianqin looked around blankly, his face filled with confusion. Just when he wanted to climb up from the bed, a heart-wrenching pain came from his body, mercilessly destroying Jianqin's expression. The intense pain caused Genshin to uncontrollably let out a groan. His forehead was instantly covered with cold sweat. His originally somewhat rosy face had also become pale because of the destruction of the pain. Genshin clenched his teeth and strenuously raised his head to look at the situation of his body. At this moment, he was immediately stunned. A huge hole with a diameter of 30 centimeters had appeared in his chest, almost splitting his chest in two. His entire body had become a horrible sight to behold. Dried blood scars and vicious wounds were everywhere, causing one's hair to stand on end. Looking at the situation of his body, memories surged out from Genshin's head like a tidal wave. The scene of the battle with the 8 Heaven Saint Masters immediately appeared in his mind. Am I not dead? Genshin's face became blank for a moment, but he soon came back to his senses. His eyes immediately filled with wild joy. I'm not dead. I'm not dead. I'm actually not dead. Genshin was unable to hide his excitement. His entire body began to tremble slightly, but soon after it affected the wounds on his body. The pain caused Genshin to grit his teeth and grit his teeth. It was unspeakably painful. After a while, the intense pain slowly receded. Genshin's entire body seemed to have collapsed as he lay on the bed, gasping for breath. When he calmed down, he immediately focused his mind and calmed down, sensing the situation of his body. The situation of his body was like an incomparably clear picture that appeared in Genshin's mind. Genshin's perception was actually 10 times stronger than before, but he didn't have time to feel happy about this. He didn't even notice the changes in his body before he was completely stunned by the terrible situation in his body. The injuries in his body were extremely severe. It was simply a terrible mess. His 5 viscera, 6 bowels, and various other organs had all disappeared. Even his heart had been shattered into powder. Suffering such heavy injuries shouldn't have been able to survive, but Genshin was still alive. This wasn't even the most serious thing. What Genshin couldn't accept was that the light wind sword that he had painstakingly cultivated for 10 years had actually disappeared from his dantian. Even the azure and violet sword spirits that resided in his dantian were nowhere to be found. His saint weapon had been completely shattered, and not a single bit of it was left. His dantian had lost its source of power, and his 10 years of painstaking cultivation had gone down the drain. Genshin was completely stunned. Having lost his saint weapon, he was no different from a person who had lost all of his martial arts. He had gone from a talented expert to an ordinary person who didn't know any martial arts. This matter was not a light blow to Genshin. Could it be that I've already become a cripple? Genshin's eyes were empty as he stared blankly at the ceiling. His heart was filled with unwillingness. This was because he still had many things to do, and to do these things he needed to possess great strength. Creak! At this time, the door was opened and a middle-aged man in simple clothes walked in. He was about 40 years old and had a resolute face. Although he was wearing rough clothes embroidered with patches, it still couldn't hide the extraordinary temperament of the middle-aged man. You're awake. The middle-aged man calmly looked at Genshin and said. Genshin returned to his senses and looked at the middle-aged man with a blank expression. He softly said, Thank you for saving me. The middle-aged man walked in front of Genshin and looked at his injuries. He lightly smiled and said, You're really lucky. Even after suffering such heavy injuries, your soul still hasn't dissipated. If it was anyone else, even if they were a Heaven Saint Master, they definitely wouldn't have been able to survive. The middle-aged man paused for a moment before continuing. Your injuries are very bad. All of your organs have been destroyed. Unless you have a high-level Radiant Saint Master to heal you, it will be very difficult for you to recover. Genshin remained silent. Right now, his mood was extremely low. His saint weapon had been shattered, and he had lost all of his martial arts. This was a very big blow to him.